All right, here we go. And hello again, everybody. We welcome you to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman alongside my main man, Luke Brenneman. And it's great to have our buddy Reed Mouse in the house tonight. Reed, how we looking?
Looking good. I'm glad I got this off. Got the plane up in the air, so that's all that matters now. Now we can have a beautiful show, Tom.
Well, you know, both of you guys, I've given you both a little grief about it. Reed's is a little bit further along, but he's also a little bit older. But both of you guys have this growth going on above your upper lip. I've told you morning, noon, and night that it's going to come to a point where I have to literally just hold you down in your bed in the morning and shave it myself. Do you think that looks good?
No, I think I'm just holding on to the fact that this is kind of the first time in my life that I've ever had any facial hair.
I got it.
And I have no intentions of having facial hair in the
then
future.
why haven't you shaved it?
I'm just messing around. It's the summer. I have nobody to show off for. I'm a little lazy as well. I figured Reed was doing it. I knew he was going to be on the show Monday. I figured we'd match, and you can be the odd guy out.
Reed, what has led you to? I mean, you're a handsome, fit guy. I mean, pictures you post of you and your wife on different social media platforms. I mean, you guys look like the all-American couple. And now all of a sudden, what is this?
This is her decision. She likes the mustache.
She does?
Yeah, she likes the mustache. I tan very well. Well, I'm not tan right now, but she likes when I have a mustache and some tan skin. I got to be honest, Luke. I am 8 feet from you. I can't see your mustache
that's what I'm saying.
at all.
They're acting like it's night and day out here, and it is to me because stuff like this doesn't exist. I think this is over a week and going, and you still can't see it from anywhere outside of 10 feet away, like Reed said. But
all right,
I think it won't be here on Friday.
No, I'm quite sure it won't.
Growing
be
a
here
summer
Friday.
mustache could be the move.
Unlikely. We come your way here on Dialed In twice a week, Mondays and Fridays at 9:15 a.m. You can find us on YouTube on the Chatterbox Sports page. We post on the Believe Network. If you'd like to download us, just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman and you're dialed in. And you can always follow us, of course, at Tom Brenneman TV on X. So, yesterday afternoon, on a Sunday, you want to start running a few late errands, things you can get done, pop into the Walgreens, pop into UDF, get a couple things picked up and done. And all I hear about in a short amount of time is this 500 homestand, right? The one the Reds just finished. They go 5-5 against sub-500 teams in the Tigers, the Rockies, and the Marlins. They won the last two series after getting swept by Detroit. And I'm sitting there racking my brains and I'm going, did it ever occur to anyone that the Reds are a sub-500 team and were coming into this homestand? So by finishing 500, they were actually better than they have been for nearly 3 months of baseball. It's an improvement when they're 5-5 on a homestand. And the Reds, I've said on this show so many times, specifically relating to the Pirates, the Reds and their fans seem to look down their noses collectively at the Pittsburgh Pirates. It happens every time they play the Pirates. Like they're supposed to just whitewash the Pirates. The Pirates have won a playoff series more recently than the Reds have won a playoff series, the last time I checked. So here's the point. Look, I don't know who a lot of the fans right now think the Reds are, but they are not all that right now to be looking down their nose at anybody. Yesterday's game was basically what we've known about this club all year long. In my opinion, this team has a very, very poor baseball IQ. I mean, there's no player in the game that I would pay money for to watch more than I would Ellie De La Cruz. But come on, let's be honest now, okay? And you can give the excuse whatever it is. He's making a base running mistake seemingly once a week, sometimes twice a week. It's reality. Tyler Stevenson, where is that guy going? Leading off, you hit a ball that's going to go for an extra base hit, and with nobody out, you're going to try and turn it into a triple. First out of the inning, Reed, your dad, big-time baseball coach over at Baden. What's the rule?
Don't make the first or third out at third base.
Thank you very much. That's as old as time itself, okay? All right, so this time a year ago, the Reds were 50-41. They were one game ahead in the National League Central. This year, they're 47-50. They're not healthy. They're not smart. And they're 8 games out of first place. Last year, they were healthy, to their credit, and they were smart. So, is it time to throw in the towel? Absolutely not. In fact, we will talk about that coming up shortly. Are the Reds buyers or sellers? And we're going to pick, Reed, Luke, and me, we're going to pick who we think will make the playoffs this year, since we're at the All-Star break. Major League Baseball draft began last night, and everybody has an opinion. Reed, you made the point of the day. People were up in arms that rather than taking Charlie Condon, the big slugger out of Georgia, with the second pick in the draft, the Reds took Wake Forest right-hander Chase Burns. In the second round, they took a high school kid out of Omaha, supposed to be an unbelievable athlete, shortstop named Tyson Lewis. And in the third round, LSU right-hander Luke Holman. How many times do you think a lot of the people who had an opinion on X watched Chase Burns or Condon play this year?
If you're asking me, I would say very little. Very, very little they've seen Chase Burns throw a pitch, and very little have they seen Condon have an at-bat. So very little to none at all, Tom.
Probably a few Condon home runs on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, he went on multiple tears throughout
did.
this season, just hitting nukes. But, yeah, to Reed's point, looking at this stuff's the dumbest thing. People forming an opinion's the dumbest thing. Nobody really watches college baseball unless you're in the ACC, or I guess southern part of the country,
right.
or East Coast.
That's right.
And to say that you can tell who's better in the long run in the pipeline of an organization, that is blasphemy. You only saw a couple bombs. And I know Condon's more exciting, and for a Reds team that their gaping hole right now is the entire outfield area, you're like, geez, we could use a slugger. But I can't make an opinion because I'll humbly say I don't care. I mean, heck, it took an NL All-Star Hunter Green, who was promising from the start, numerous years, granted the injuries, but that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
I'll wait until, they're a couple months away from getting called up or making their debut to make a real opinion on the draft pick.
I mean, exactly this time last year, all we were hearing about was Rhett Lauder was going to be able to maybe pitch for the Reds in September of last year as they were trying to make the playoffs. Kid out of Wake Forest as well, by the way. Well, they didn't even pitch Lauder last year. He had pitched so many innings in college that they just shut him down. And this year has not been good for Lauder. But that's a different topic for a different time. But now, some of the people who actually earned their living watching these high school and college players, they have an opinion, that's fine. Is there any read, by the way? Some of those sites I can't get into because I'm not a member. What are the quote-unquote experts, whoever they are, what are they thinking about this pick?
Well, I mean, Chase Burns was the consensus top pitcher in the draft. So if you want to say that's great. But here's the thing. You get on X.com, you see everyone get all worked up. Why are we taking a pitcher? First off, it's baseball. These aren't going to make an immediate impact right away, so don't worry about needs. Just draft best players. And then secondly, you can, at the same time, acknowledge how important the draft is. That's how every great team is made in Major League Baseball. You can do all the money stuff. You can say the Dodgers spent $1,000 or $1 billion in the offseason. They draft well.
Yes, they do.
Well.
Yes, they do.
The Astros drafted well. The Royals, when they went on their world, they draft well. Look at every team. The Orioles right now, they're benefiting off a great draft. You can acknowledge that the draft is incredibly important and also not have an opinion on who you draft. The best thing that I would say is just trust your team, and then hopefully it works out. Hopefully you see him in a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, and it turns out to be a great pick. But you don't always have to have an opinion on everything that your favorite team does.
That's exactly right. That's 1,000% correct. That's why I reserve judgment on all this. Who they pick, their people, with Nick Kroll and Brandon Metter, and then the entire staff. We'll see how it works out. Home Run Derby. We'll highlight the opening night of the All-Star break tonight. Do you still watch a Home Run Derby? We're going to talk more about that coming up here in a minute, too. All right. We've been joking about this for a couple of years now, going back to off the bench and now with Dialed In. If you recall, I said from the very beginning that I was a huge fan of Pat Noonan. Okay? The sport, I didn't understand some of the things that go on. I still don't understand some of the things that go on with all of a sudden your season's still ongoing while some of your players are playing in these other tournaments, all that. Okay, we've talked about all that. But I had never been to an FC Cincinnati game in person until, as we suggested Friday, Luke, what's the move? And I said the move might be for my bride and I to go down to an FC Cincinnati game. So I jumped on StubHub, and I bought 2 tickets. I scouted out, where should you sit, texted a couple of buddies. They didn't get back to me in time. I had to make a decision. This was late Saturday afternoon. My wife and I look at each other, and we're like, all right, let's go. Let's go check it out. We've never seen it. You've been down there, Luke? Yay or nay? TQL?
I've been there. It's a great spot.
You've been there?
I have not been there, Tom.
Okay, I got to tell you. Now, unfortunately, for my first game is the time they pick to lay an egg. They lose to Charlotte. Okay? And it really was a game of just near misses. They tripled the amount of shots on goal as Charlotte, and they would just literally off the post, miss by this much. It's just one of those nights. So that part I don't care about. I got to tell you, that is a big league place. It is a really, really cool place. I know some people get a little worried about the neighborhood down there in OTR. And, look, you can drift a block here, a block there. It's right by Findlay Market. It's 1 block away from the new Taft Technological High School down there, which that in itself is unbelievable. But the parking, the areas where you can park around there, if you want to go have cocktails over in OTR, you can, and then walk on over. Polly and I didn't do that. We just parked and went in the game. But, that place is cool. That place is really, really, really cool. And, look, I spent some money on the tickets. I had to reach in my wallet for those babies. But I had a great time. I would highly recommend it.
You said you used the Game Time app, right? The Game Time app, Tom.
What did I say?
You said StubHub. I think you meant to say Game Time app.
Yeah, of course. It was a Stub.
Did you go to the pitch?
Time. No, you mean the Bailey?
No, the pitch is the bar across the street.
No. We didn't go to a bar beforehand.
Okay.
We had stopped for a quick dinner in Marymount, and then we shot right downtown. Wasn't sure because we hadn't done the whole thing, what the parking situation might be like, all that. We got off at Ezra Charles. They're off 75. We drive down Ezra Charles about 4 or 5 blocks. All of a sudden, there's this Catholic church. You'd have been proud of me. It's this Catholic church. It's been there for 111 years. They have a rectory and everything down there. Mm-hmm. And they have folks that I'm assuming are members of the church that sit out there and take money to park in their parking lot, and the money goes to the church.
There you go, nice.
So I felt good about everything.
You paid your tithe.
We did. That was our tithe. That was it. Everett Henry says Luke hasn't shaved in months, and he can tell.
We're done with that topic, all right?
I'm just telling you what the chat's saying.
I think it looks good.
Thank you.
It looks good.
He's a little Hall of Fame hater over there.
I'm just letting you know. Everybody wants to know how's Florida. Casey is on the now.
Dude, you are worlds behind in the chat right now.
We love our guy Casey. The dude just left on vacation. What in the hell is he doing on? Of course, we said he was going with his in-laws.
Casey's a part of the show.
Said we were going with his in-laws on a vacation, which, Reed, you have done time to time.
Yeah.
Going with the in-laws.
Yeah. It's a blast. I have a good time with my in-laws when we go on vacation.
Okay. All right. Casey's in the chat.
Casey's part of the team. I respect it. He's not leaving us out to dry here on Monday morning.
Hey, Casey, it's okay. Enjoy your vacation. It'll be okay.
Turn it off.
The walls won't fall, won't crumble down. You'll be okay.
That's exactly right. We're in very good hands here with with our main man, Reed Mouse. People want me to get into the whole assassination attempt. Obviously, this is a terrible situation that we saw over the weekend. There are people dead. There are people seriously wounded. I just, all it takes is one. And that's the state where we are right now, an embarrassment really to the world. And just, thank God there weren't more people killed, including Donald Trump. But even more people that were sitting right around him. One guy, he had 2 daughters with him, right? Volunteer fireman, he's dead. He's just sitting there. He's just sitting there. Wanted to go down there to a political person that he supports, whether you do, I do, doesn't matter. But he's just sitting there. And bang. Now the daughters don't have a dad to grow up with. So it's tough to talk about. We're not going to talk anymore about it. All right, I want to get into now the Reds. Okay? Seemingly for a couple of weeks anyway, people talking about should they be a buyer or a seller at the deadline. I will start with my opinion and turn it over to you two. I say they do nothing, is my opinion. Now, if something fell in front of you where you'd be stupid not to do it, okay. But here's the way I look at it, right? They allegedly are going to get some of these guys back who have been injured. Marte is going to start to hit sooner or later. I'm not worried about that. So he'll be your third baseman, Elliott short. They keep saying McLean. You've heard me say all along, I don't think McLean plays for him this year, but they keep saying he will, so I'm going to say okay. McLean becomes your second baseman. India, who's been your second best player all year long, becomes your DH. Candelario at first. Steer. Friedel comes back, and they say he'll be back within the next 10 to 12 days. He's in center. And now you got this Reece Hinds kid who's tearing it up. Now, we know that's not going to last forever. We know that. But for right now, he's your answer for the big bat you didn't have in your lineup, right? Okay, I'm not going to do anything because for them to be 3 games under 500 with all of the injuries and all of the players they are missing, I would think they are going to be better in the second half. The only thing that worries me is something you may remember that I talked about from the very beginning of the year, and that is based on the number of innings their starters in the rotation this year threw last year, or more accurately, didn't throw last year. I do get very concerned that once they get into late August, early September, they're going to have to start shutting guys down even if they're healthy. Because Lodolo didn't pitch at all last year. He is on a serious innings count for this year. Green, you're not going to bump him more than 20% from last year. He still doesn't get to 200 innings. Abbott, we saw him run out of steam last year when they extended him. Now, he'll have a chance to go a little further along because he was extended last year. And then the rest of the rotation right now is a mess because of injuries. I say they do nothing, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I honestly hate to agree with you for the sake of the show, but I feel the same way. I mean, if you look at it in numerous different perspectives, if you have a double breaker putt in golf and you don't know what to do, you hit it right at the hole and you ride it out.
Yep.
If you have a decent hand in poker, you definitely aren't betting. You definitely aren't folding. You're just kind of riding it out. And I think there's a lot of uncertainties in that aspect for the Reds. Is Matt McLean ever going to come back? Is this one of those things that's where it's another month? There's obviously no Marte in the playoffs. And like you said, the biggest thing that nobody's really talking about is, are these starting pitchers who have had a heck of a year and quite honestly kept the Reds in playoff talk at this point in the season as we're headed into the All-Star break, are they going to be able to do this consistently for the next 60 games, let alone stay healthy and continue producing good, solid innings? I think you ride it out. If you get your guys back and you go on another run, then heck, you could find your way into a playoff spot. But at the end of the day, if you don't know, the worst thing you can do is go out and buy, and then the other parts of your team that have helped you all year, those crumble apart, and then you're left with nothing come the next 2 to 3 years. I think the Reds have a really bright future, and ride out the second half of the season or the last 60 games and see what happens.
I don't know if they have a bright future or not, but I just feel like that they're going to be better in the second half. Reed, now you are a Cubby guy, an admitted Cubby guy.
I am.
The only team in the division behind the Reds in the standings.
Thanks for the reminder.
No problem. It's a half-game difference, by the way, so what the hell's the difference? What do you think the Reds ought to do?
So when I think of the Reds, I think buying is off the table. I think buying is completely off the table.
Fair.
Because I don't think that there's any piece that gets them, for sure into the playoffs. I don't think you can bring in some bat and all of a sudden this team's going to win 86, 87 games. I don't think that's possible. But I do think that there are some valuable assets that have great value that you can get something out of in the bullpen. Fernando Cruz, he's a 34-year-old relief pitcher that's having a really good year. He's got swing and miss stuff. He's got one of the best pitches in the league in his split finger. I think you can trade him for pieces. But here's the problem with trading relievers like that is you don't bring a whole lot back.
That's right, you don't.
You don't bring a whole lot back, but you do have an opportunity to bring something back for a reliever that's, honestly, he didn't come up to the major leagues till he was 32 years old. And now he's going to throw in probably 75 games. Who knows what he's going to be next year?
There's no
Ian
doubt.
Jabot threw 75, 80 games last year, and he hasn't pitched a single inning for the Reds this year because he was overused. So I think you trade a Fernando Cruz. I think you can get some value out of the bullpen to sell those pieces. But for the most part, I think you just sit. Because the one big question mark is Jonathan India. What do you do with Jonathan India?
Now, see, that is the big question.
Because he's having the best year, and that's including his Rookie of the Year campaign. He's having his best year.
Yep.
People will pay for Jonathan India. You got one more year with him, I believe.
Yep.
I think
Under a contract. He signed a 2-year, $8 million deal, and then you'd have another year after that before he could hit free agency.
So what do you do with Jonathan India? And I think you just stay put. If this was last year and Jonathan India's having the year, I think you trade him.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have Matt McClain, you have Noah Marte, you have all these pieces, you have Edwin Arroyo coming up and all these things that you can comfortably say, hey, it's okay if we lose Jonathan India, and let's trade him when he's at the highest value that he's ever had in a year in which no one's going to be trading because everyone feels like they're still in it.
Yep.
But here we are the next year, and you still have a lot of question marks, so I'm not comfortable trading away Jonathan India based off the performance he's having this year.
I agree 100% on that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable either, Reed, because baseball, I've never heard the word prospect get used more, and for good reason. You're drafting kids out of high school that are going to play in the minor leagues for years before they get an opportunity. But especially as a Reds fan in a small market team, yes, you have to draft well and you have to have a good major league pipeline. And how often do these quote-unquote top prospects actually pan out?
No doubt about it.
And Jonathan India, you can call it fluke this year, but he is on a tear right now, and he is looking like he is going to pan out. So if you're going to have a good minor league system, I think you got to hold on to the guys that are actually producing for you, because at what point does that mean anything? If you're a Reds fan, you're going to pride yourself on drafting well and having good young talent because that's the way you're going to win, and you finally have it through 100 games of the season. Now you're going to say, would it be fair, we're the Reds, India wasn't great last year, let's just get rid of him. What happens if Marte decides to be no good? Because he hasn't shown anything about being good outside of 3 weeks last season. What happens if Matt McClain isn't the same when he comes back from injury? We're looking around next year after the first 30 games. Reds could be 10 games under 500. We're saying, geez, Jonathan India, we dealt him and he hit 20 bombs, going second half of the season into the playoffs, turning the corner, and he's really developing as a 27-year-old. Yeah, the infield might not be great, but India could be moved to the designated hitter if Matt McClain comes back next year.
Yeah, and he's still a guy that's capable, while not playing them necessarily very well on defense. He is a guy that's capable of being moved around, and he's already accepted it. India would be the tricky one. But I agree with both. Look, on this program last year, I was saying that they needed to make a deal to try and get to the playoffs last year because they had all their young guys playing, healthy, whole deal. And you'll remember we also said on the program that year 2, no guarantee, all bets are off. And let's be honest about it. The only guy in year 2 who's been a player this year, position player, has been Ellie. Everybody else are either suspended or hurt or taking a step backwards. Steer looked like he was on track for a monster year. You've never been a big Steer guy.
Nope.
He's taken a major step back. Friedel's been out all year. Who knows? Fraley, now he's not a young player. But, he had hit a home run in 2 months, 3 months. Encarnacion Strand hurt. Marte suspended. McClain hurt. So there's no guarantee that all these guys are going to be great next year. That's why when you say their future is bright, I don't know if it's bright or not. It might be, but it might not be. I don't know. But I do know they're right there within 3 games of the wild card, even though there are a few teams between them and the top 3, which we get to now. So we're at the All-Star break, and we're going to make our picks right now as to who we think in each league will make the playoffs. Luke Brenneman, I will start with you. We're just going to start with the American League.
Ooh, okay.
All right? The American League. Who are you predicting will reach the playoffs, division champs, and wild card?
The American League's a little tricky because outside of the Guardians, the division leaders aren't nearly as locked up as the National League already looks to be. So I do have the Orioles winning that division still. So Guardians, Orioles, and I actually have the Houston Astros winning the West. And I think that for good reason. The Mariners, Reed talked about it before the show, they don't really score. I don't think there's too much to be excited about with the Mariners. I think they're a consistently over 500 baseball team, but that's not going to cut it in the AL when you have a team as experienced late in the season and clutch as the Astros, because they simply win. Say what you want about them, but they are in the mix every single year. I see them winning that division. For the wild card teams, obviously the Yankees are going to be one. I have the Red Sox as 2, and I think I'm going to keep the Twins in there just because they are 12 games over 500 right now. The Royals are knocking on the door, though. You're not going to get any push out of the Rays. I wouldn't be surprised if the Detroit Tigers foolishly somehow hold on to Scooble now at the deadline because they've won 3 straight series, actually, after sweeping the Reds. They took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers going into the All-Star break. They're still 7 games back of a spot. I think with how talented and high-powered the AL is, the wild card stays the exact same as it is right now. But the Astros win that division, and the Mariners don't even make the playoffs.
Okay. Reed?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar. So the Houston Astros are a game out of the American League West, and that's having the worst April that I think they were in last place in the American League
by a long ways.
I think the only team that was worse was the White Sox for the first 6 weeks of the year, and here they are a game out from winning that division. They're going to continue because it's the Houston Astros. They've got really good players. I know everyone hates on them because they cheated, but Jose Altuve is a phenomenal player. Yordan, that team's very, very good. They're going to win the West. The Mariners aren't going to make the postseason at all because they have scored the fewest amount of runs in the American League, sans Chicago White Sox. So that's who I have in the West. I have the Orioles winning the American League East because that lineup is absolutely incredible. They just need some help. They'll probably buy a pitcher starting on the rotation because they have had some injuries there. And the Guardians obviously win the Central. My 3 wild card teams, I think the New York Yankees are going to continue to figure it out. They've got too many great players in Juan Soto and Aaron Judge that their infield is stunk, but they'll figure it out. They'll be fine. The other 2 teams I have making the wild card are both from the American League Central. I really like what the Kansas City Royals are doing. Bobby Witt is a bona fide superstar. Cole Reagans is a Cy Young candidate. So they've got the 2 pieces, the 2 pillars that they need to make the postseason. I think they continue to do it. I think they continue to play good baseball, and they make as the 3rd wild card team. And then the Twins. Yeah. Carlos Correa, everyone wondered about that signing. He's having a phenomenal year. Carlos Correa is a phenomenal player. I think the Minnesota Twins are a pretty good team. Okay. So that's my 6 teams.
I'm going different than you guys. I'm going to pick the Yankees to win the division. When you think of how bad they have been, up until this last series before the break, they were 0-7-1 in their 8 series leading up to the final weekend before the All-Star break. If you've played that bad and you're only 1 game out of first place, I think you're going to win the division. So I have the Yankees win the division, Guardians winning the division. I'm with you guys on Houston. We're all bullish on Houston. So those are your 3 division winners. So wild card, I have the Orioles, the Twins, and I'm going to pick the Texas Rangers to get it together.
Really?
They're 4 games under.
What?
I'm going to pick them to make a big-time run here and get there. Now, they've got a ways to go. But I just have a feeling that team knows how to win. I know they've had their issues this season. I get it. And right now they're 7.5 back in the wild card. But I think that they're going to rip off some a link. So that's going out on a limb a little bit. All right. National League. Let's go. Luke, same order.
All right, NL's easy when it comes to divisions. Obviously, the Phillies, as dominant as it gets. The Dodgers have the West. I'm not going to say the Central is as locked up as we act like it is every day. For some reason, this entire building and Chatterbox as a whole, shout out Nick Kirby, he's one of the bigger Cardinals haters, and he had some good points to kind of debunk one of my takes about the Cardinals when it comes to their bats and lineup. But I am not dead on the Cardinals yet. You can talk about how old their starting pitching is and how bad their run differential is. But for some reason, I think they get it going. You know, Paul Goldschmidt was a big name where they said at the deadline the Cardinals were going to deal him. Well, if you're the Cardinals, you are in a playoff spot right now.
There's no way.
And you have no reason to sell. If anything, you're probably the second favorite to make that second wild card spot outside of the Braves at this point. I'm very high on the Cardinals. Like I said, they're probably not going to win the division, but I'm not calling it over. They're the only team that has a chance to catch the Brewers, in my opinion. So Braves at the first wild card spot, Cardinals in the second, and I'm going to stick with the New York Mets. I don't think the Diamondbacks have what it takes. They snuck in last year, had their run. I don't think they do it again. The Padres, they are obviously the best team on paper in this. Their starting pitcher is flooded with studs. Yu Darvish, Musgrove. We saw Cease.
He's out for a while.
Yeah, but we saw Cease put on an absolute clinic the other night in Atlanta. And then their lineup. They have two guys hitting north of 300 with Profar and Arise alongside a bunch of power hitters. Machado, Cronenworth, a middle infielder with over 20 home runs, and they're still one game over 500. You can't look that good statistically and play 500 baseball. You got to be better than that at the deadline if you're going to make the playoffs. I'm sold on them, and everybody else, they honestly stink. The Pirates stink, the Reds stink, the Giants stink, and the Cubs stink. Like, it's the Mets, Cardinals, and Braves.
Fighting words.
Mets, Cardinals, Braves. It was always those three. It really was.
It's
Well,
funny.
you're sold on a lot of teams that are 500. Go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of teams in the National League that are right around 500.
That's right.
It's funny. I have clipped up Luke from May saying that the Cubs stink, because I think at the time when he said that, the Cubs were like 7 games over 500. And I'm going to keep it just in case, but I thought about deleting it a few times now. When it comes to the National League, yeah, I'm not as sold on. I mean, the Phillies are really good. They're going to make the postseason, but I really don't think that the Phillies are true contenders for the World Series.
What?
I really don't think that. I know it's crazy.
What?
I know it's
110
crazy.
run differential.
I get it. They've got great hitters. They've got good pitching. It makes a lot of sense. Just they play terrible defense. Other than I think Bryson Stott.
That much is true. But they win every night.
Listen, if you win a lot of games,
I mean, they just swept the Dodgers.
yeah,
Kicked their ass all over the field.
I get it, Tom. But Phillies make it. The Braves make it as the first wild card team from the Central. I think the Brewers are going to win the Central. I think that the Dodgers are going to win the West. That was pretty easy between the division winners. Then obviously the Braves are going to make it. So the final two teams. I like what Luke says about the St. Louis Cardinals, because the Cardinals have this Pittsburgh Steeler way about them where they just win. They just always win. It doesn't make any sense. And when you've got two borderline Hall of Famers in Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, when you've got young talent like Mason Wynn, when you've got one of the elite catchers in the game in Wilson Contreras, when you got one of the best closers in the game in Ryan Helsley, that smells like a playoff team.
No.
But there's just something about them that I can't buy.
You just don't like them.
That's probably true. That's probably true. So I'm not going to say the Cardinals. I think the Padres do win it. I think they got too much talent. They've got good pitching. They've got a couple of borderline Hall of Famers in Manny Machado and a future guy in Fernando Tatis. Give me the Padres. So the final team is going to be from the National League Central. It's either going to be my Chicago
No,
Cubs
not either. Who is it?
or the Pittsburgh Pirates. I will take my Cubs, but I really like what the Pirates are doing. If they have the pitching, and I know Jared Jones is going to be out for a little bit. Paul Skeens is going to be the All-Star Game starter. If they can have Key Brian Hayes to hit a little better, if they can have O'Neal Cruz to hit a little better, if they can have one of their catching prospects just play a little better, this team can make the postseason and be a threat. Do you want to play Paul Skeens and Jared Jones and Mitch Keller in the postseason?
I don't want to go in a 5-game series against Keller, Jones, and Paul Skeens.
No.
Hell no.
That's the one team that everyone is begging. Do not let the Pirates get into the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll
Because
tell you
they know-
right
Or the
now, I think
Padres,
you
or
can
the
make-
Padres.
I think you can make that argument with the Reds.
No.
Just based on that.
They can't
Hunter
hit, though.
Green, Nick. Well, I'm just saying, though, we didn't say anything. We were just talking about all the deficiencies they're having on offense.
That's true.
I don't know how many teams right now would want to face Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott in a best of 5.
Good point.
Pretty damn good lineup right there.
It's a good lineup.
In a best of 5. You only need 3.
2 lefties, though. I don't know.
That's what I like even more.
Some teams stack up, though.
I like it even more. Takes away the other team's best left-handed hitters in theory. Okay, so you're saying, who is it? Cubs or the Pirates?
I'll say the Pirates make the postseason.
There you go.
All right, you just don't want to be ridiculed. All right, I'm going to go with the division standings the way they are right now. Phillies, obviously, they're the best team in the league by far. Then you've got, I still think Milwaukee. I think the Brewers are going to buy at the deadline. And then you have the Dodgers. Okay, 3 wild card teams. I'm going St. Louis. I said, well, Atlanta, that's a given. Okay, so Atlanta, St. Louis, because I think they will add at the deadline. They had the worst year they've had in forever last year. Their fans were chapped. They went out and spent that money on some pitchers. They're going to figure out a way to make some kind of move to get better. And the last is the Diamondbacks. I mean, they've been awful most of the year. And then all of a sudden here, the last 2 weeks, they've got it going now. They've got very good pitching. It doesn't reflect necessarily statistically because it was bad early. Corbin Carroll is going to play better second half of the season. They've got a talented team who knows how to win. I take the D-backs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only glaring issue with the D-backs is they had a true ace last year in Zach Gallen. He got rocked yesterday. He's not having nearly the year he had last year. And like you said, they are young. They have an up and down rotation. If that can stay consistent, I just also don't trust that lineup very much. If I were to deviate from one of my teams, it would be that the Padres sneak in just because they are the best team outside of the Braves, even in this picture on paper, I would argue. But I like yours. I think it's going to be interesting.
I think you could make the argument. I think you can make the argument after the injuries to the Braves this year. I think that the way the team is built right now, you could make a viable argument that the Padres are a more talented team than the Atlanta Braves today.
It's close. I don't hate that. I don't hate that opinion at all, Tom. I think that.
I mean, the Braves.
Braves pitching,
granted,
though.
what are they 9, 11 over? And look, they lose their best player in the league. Chris LeClaire says the Reds will turn it around and make the playoffs as a wild card team. Your good friend Mouse Cop says sell everybody. That's your good friend.
Maybe they should. To your point about the Atlanta Braves, I actually had this thought yesterday, Tom. The Atlanta Braves have had a lot of injuries. They've had their key players not play. Matt Olson, Austin Riley haven't played to what you expect them to play at.
Yep.
It is a tale for how important it is to have elite players and not just good players that you – like the Chicago Cubs, my Cubs, have a lot of good players.
Yeah.
To where if they want to be true contenders, they're going to need 6, 7 guys to play above their weight, play above their pay scale. The Braves – can go out there, and Matt Olson doesn't have to be Matt Olson. He doesn't have to hit 55 home runs. Austin Riley doesn't have to drive in 130 runs. And they can still be very, very good. It's a tale that you need elite players. And that's what, like, I'm thinking about, like, the Reds. Ellie De La Cruz doesn't need to have the year he's having every year to be a very good ball player and help this team. And it just shows how important it is to have elite guys.
No doubt. And that's where, when you start counting on second-year players, you just don't know, and that's why I said last year they should have made it. They should have made a run. Now Nick has taken. I don't know if it's Dick Kirby or somebody else has said that Steer has not taken a major step backwards based on his WAR and his OPS plus. Okay, look, they may be better than they were last year, but let's be honest. Most of that has been done in the first month and a half of the season. Almost all of the positive run-producing numbers offensively of Spencer Steer occurred in the first month and a half of the season. He has not been the same guy ever since. Say whatever you want. I still think he's going to be a good player. But the WAR thing and the OPS plus thing, look, I just know what I'm looking at with my eyes. Mm-hmm. And he has not been the same offensive player for the last month and a half, 2 months.
The thing, I think you and Elliot got on me about my Spencer Steer take.
I did.
About how I think that it was pretty clear that what you saw last year wasn't the player that you should expect from Spencer Steer. It's a general rule of thumb. When a guy comes up when he's 26 years old, You shouldn't expect them to continue to improve like Spencer Steer. If he hit 27 home runs last year, batted 270, if he does that every year, he's an all-star. But I didn't expect that. I expect him to be a major league hitter, a good hitter, hit around 20 home runs, hit about 250, get some power, have those stretches where he looks like an all-star.
Yep.
But he's just not going to be ever that consistent of a player to where you can expect 30 home runs from him, where you can expect a 270 batting average and a 900 OPS.
All right, now you look at in fairness to Steer's season. He had a monster April and May. He was awful, in March and April. He was awful in May. Hit a .177. Now, he hit 280 in June and drove in 16 runs. But in July, now granted, we're only 14 days in, he does have 5 home runs. He's hitting 250. So, I guess you could say that he has been a lot like this. But I still think he's going to be a good player. At the end of the day, he's got 15 home runs. He's knocked in 60. He's stolen 14 bags from you. His OPS is 777. And, now his on-base percentage is almost 100 points higher than a 242 hitter. But I guess I'm still living in the past because 242 is average now in the big leagues.
That's when you look at OPS plus, which takes in how the league's hitting.
Right.
That's why numbers can be a little lower, but your OPS plus is higher because the league's not hitting as good this year. The thing about Spencer Steer that I think troubles me the most is that I don't see a position for him. Like I wish that he can improve as a fielder so that you can stick him in the lineup every day and feel he plays a bunch of different positions.
Yes. But
he does none of them very well. He's not a good outfielder. He's an average first baseman at best, and he certainly can't play third base. So I want if he can advance in any way, it would be with the glove, I think.
Yeah, but he still is capable of, at the end of the year, you look at his numbers, and they've got a chance to be pretty doggone good. They really do. In fact, they will be the best on the team, probably, when all is said and done.
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, it's the All-Star break. We have a couple nights off, no baseball. It comes down to this. The Reds have around 20 to 22 series left of baseball.
Yeah.
12 to 13 of them are against teams that are at 500 or better.
That's a whole league.
And it comes down, you're not going to fluke your way into this NL playoff run. You might not have as good of a record as previous wild card teams because the whole league is right there outside of the top dogs and the worst two. But what I'm saying is you are going to have to beat the mediocre teams. You have to handle the Athletics when you get that chance late in the year. You have to handle the Marlins again when you see them again. And it's going to come down to those series against the Cubs, against the Pirates, against the Astros. When you go interleague and play the Twins, you can't get swept in these final 60 games. You can't go on another 7-game win streak. The Reds, you could argue they control their own destiny. All of these teams in the middle of the National League wildcard race, you're going to have to play a good second half of the season.
And it starts against the Nationals. Look, I thought the Nationals were the worst team I'd ever seen in my life when they came here early this summer to start the season. And they found a way to basically be around like everybody else, kind of like the Reds, right around within a handful of games, one way or the other of 500. So it starts there. All right. Pick a home run derby champ before it's time for off the bench. Who you picking tonight, Reed, in the home run derby?
I like Bobby Witt Jr.
All right, and are you watching?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, are you watching?
I got Ozuna from the Braves.
Ooh, Marcell Ozuna.
Yes.
Are you watching it?
I am watching it.
You watching it. Okay, I am taking Pete Alonso of the Mets to win again.
All right, now everybody's got to have a British Open pick before we go.
All right, quick. British Open, who you taking?
I hate the guy. I've always been on the hate train, but he's going to win. He's a great one, Rory McIlroy.
All right.
Stole it from me. I wish I would have got to go first because I'm taking Rory as well.
All right. I am taking Phil Mickelson.
The lefty.
I think he's
That's my guy.
I think he's like
That's
150
my guy,
to 1.
Phil Mickelson. All right. No, in all seriousness, I'm picking Scheffler.
Of course you are.
I'm picking Scheffler and everything. All right. Everybody have a great rest of your week. We'll be back here on Friday. Reed, great having you here today, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was awesome. Great having you here today. Lukey?
Yes, sir.
Have a good rest of your day.
See you guys Friday.
Off the Bench is coming up next with all the buoys. And here we go.
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
I hope everybody had a great weekend, and, well, this is a fun week, a dreaded week, and, well, I know Jacob, my guy over here, he's waiting for 4 o'clock.
That's right.
Coming up later on today, but we have a ton to cover here as we kick off the week. Not a lot of baseball this week outside of the All-Star break, the Home Run Derby, and, of course, we're recapping, of course, the draft that happened yesterday. The Reds wrap up the first half of the regular season, of course, and, yeah, we got a ton of baseball lined up for you here this afternoon. Justin Kinner with you here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and, of course, in Dayton, Ohio on 1410 ESPN Radio, which is Dayton's radio home for Cincinnati Reds baseball, of course. But we got Jimmy. Jimmy, good morning. How are you, sir?
Morning.
Week number 2 of the birthday polo. I like it.
My other birthday polo, my Tigers polo, they won 2 series over the weekend. So.
Well, it's
Give me some. That's what I'm talking about.
Taking out the best teams in baseball somehow.
we're gonna talk. I have Copa lined up for you here in a little bit. The chaos that was Copa in Los Angeles yesterday. I figured you'd be excited. Of course, Casey's not here on the day that we're going to throw out a soccer topic. But speaking of no Casey, we got Mr. Reed. Reed, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. You know, when I got kicked off this show by you, Kenner, when you took over, I've been looking for the day when I get to host, and that day is today. I was going to ask you, because you're a big Spain soccer fan, how did you celebrate winning the Euros?
Yeah.
That's right. We're all big Spain soccer fans.
All this Copa
Not
thing
me.
today.
That's not Copa.
It was all the pregame Copa stuff. Like, I don't know what happened. Wait, what happened
Not
with Spain?
Copa.
That's
What happened?
Euros. Spain won the Euros.
What's happening?
Spain won the Euros.
Oh,
They win the tournament.
that's
for
why I'm so
Europe.
tired today.
The
Yeah.
Euros is like Copa, but like a little more official and better teams.
Oh, well, this is why I don't talk soccer. Because if everyone who thinks I don't know what I'm talking about, this just proves it. So, happy Monday. No, yeah. So, Reed, right from the top rope. Before I was kicked off the show, like just bam.
You did kick me off the show, though, so it's
We've had
I had to-
conversations. I told you I did not make that.
they weren't fun conversations for me. You said, if you ever come on my show, I'm walking out the door. Well, the door's right over there, Justin.
And yet here we are. Happy Monday. Oh, look, we got a new look. We got a new co-host. We
It's
got
his
a new
week.
what we
What
got?
are you guys talking about?
We got Mr. Elliott Rearing, everybody.
Hey, what a beautiful day it is. I'll tell you what. Today is a glorious Monday because this is the week. This is my favorite week of the year. Justin, you don't know this, but what we do for this company, we do an event. It's no joke, and I say this with a straight face. I'm very serious. We go to Balloon Town every year, and Balloon Town's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
That's right.
What you do is you congregate in the middle of a field, and then all of the world's biggest balloons are there as well, and they lift them up in the air.
Well,
Sometimes.
most of the time they
Most
just
of the
light the fire.
Yeah, well,
All glow. All glow.
listen, all these inside jokes, you just have to be a part of it. Come on out to, where is it, Middletown?
Middletown. Smith
Middletown.
Park.
Middletown for Balloon Town. Very
The
fun
Ohio
event.
Challenge is what it's actually called. It's actually a pretty cool event.
I call it Balloon Town because there's many balloons, and it's in a town.
So that's what you guys are working this
right.
later on this week. So
That's
that's what
right.
you guys
Yeah.
are preparing for.
Yes.
And getting all set up. Well, nice. But I'm still trying to figure out Mr. David Bell sitting next to you. What's going on there?
It's his week.
Well, he's an all-star, and I just thought he should be appropriately represented on this program.
That's right.
And
So
that is fair.
anybody who says that he's a bad manager, yada, 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 you just take a look at this guy right here, David Bell. He's responsible for this team, as Nick Kirby said last night, 5-2 in their last 7. 5-2 in their last 7, and this is David Bell, who should take all the credit. He hasn't benched Reece Hinds. He's kept him in the lineup. He said, Reece, I'm going to coach you up. I'm going to coach you up real good, and you're going to hit a bunch of home runs this week. That was because of David Bell, all-star manager.
That's right.
So his face will be on this show for as long as it can stay on right there on the
It would
microphone.
seem that ends right about now.
Because
Yep,
Reece was,
it's going to end soon.
Reece was a bum before he got called up by David Bell. I mean,
That's
ever
right.
since David Bell has
David
passed
Bell
on
just needs
that
to get his
wisdom,
hands on you, and you'll be the best player since Willie Mays.
Yes.
it's
He
like
is-
Phil
he
Jackson.
is.
He is,
Phil Jackson,
really.
Michael Jordan type stuff going on.
That's right. You think of the great coaches in the game. It's Phil Jackson, Coach K, David Bell. That's about it.
You could stop there.
That's it. Just stop it right there.
Speaking of Michael Jordan, big Michael Jordan fan, Mr. Jacob Tissett, everybody.
That's right. Second best player of all time. Got to appreciate greatness.
What's at 4 o'clock today, dude?
4 o'clock today. College Football 25 drops. First college football video game in 11 years. EA Sports announced they were bringing it back 3 years ago, and the day is finally here. So I woke up a little earlier this morning, turned on my PlayStation just to make sure it was downloaded so it's ready to go when I get home. Watched that countdown clock for a few minutes before I got in my car and drove to work. Man, I am so excited.
But you're off. You will be home at 4 o'clock.
Probably not, but I'm going to try my best.
We'll see. We'll see what we can do. By the way, college
wink, wink, because Trace is watching, right?
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Will here's a question. Will Jacob be in the video game? Because he was a part of that dynasty up there, over there in Alabama.
Maybe if it was last year's.
Did
you opt in, dude? Did you opt in?
I tried. I tried to opt in.
You could just be he's on those sidelines recording somebody's social media video.
That's right.
Well, I thought that you were going to pull an Arch Manning and be like, you know what? It's a distraction. It's a distraction to off the bench. All I care about is winning.
It absolutely is.
And that's why you opted out of the video game. And I respect that. I respect guys like that. Unless you were offered $50,000 to $60,000 to
If I was offered $50,000 to $60,000, I'd be playing that game right now.
Yeah, I was going to say. Take the year off, as far as that's concerned. But, again, we welcome you in Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. So Major League Baseball draft was over the weekend. I knew it was coming up. I thought it was this week. I didn't realize it was over the weekend, so that's shame on me for not paying that close attention. And we knew it was going to be a unique draft because, the Cincinnati Reds had the second overall pick. Cleveland Guardians had the first pick, and it's an interesting weekend hearing all the draft coverage because I've never heard anybody talk baseball draft, heatedly before. Until the Reds are picking at the top. And I think that because people could feel the urgency of this draft pick because which direction were the Reds going to go in? You're in a weird time right now where I know people are talking about this Reds rebuild as if every decision that they make has to be for the future, for when this team finally gets to the point to where they are a division contender, right? Like it felt like last year, they had kind of arrived prematurely a little bit. And then you see this team gets a little banged up, and then they take quite a few steps back, and then you realize the deficiencies that still exist within this roster and organization as far as that's concerned. Now, I'm not going to pretend to use today's show to act like a draft aficionado when it comes to Major League Baseball. In fact, the one reason I never really get into the draft for baseball is because it's really hard for me to have a hot take on a particular player or pick for either team, for any team, when we're not going to know whether it was a good or a bad pick for quite some time. But I feel like the pick that was just recently made when it comes to the Cincinnati Reds has a lot to do with the fact that this team feels like they are very, very close. And rather than picking a project that they're going to have to work on for the next couple of years, maybe going in a direction that, okay, this is the guy that's going to give us the opportunity to put a player out there as soon as possible to line all the key pieces up. I mean, you look at the last couple of years, you look at all the key call-ups. I know Matt McClain's been hurt and out for the year, but you look at Matt McClain, you look at Christian Encarnacion Strand, you look at Ellie De La Cruz, you look at Reece Hinds, who was just called up, you look at Andrew Abbott. I mean, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo obviously have been called up over the last couple of years. That threw me off, sorry, because I see that light flashing over there. I hear the siren out there. ADD taken off. Sorry about that. But no, you see the youth movement that has taken over for the Cincinnati Reds, and you have to decide, okay, do we, what's going to be the draft pick that is going to put you in the best position to succeed as soon as possible? So this is where I don't really have a hot take on who they picked. They end up taking Chase Burns, the top pitcher, that was available in this draft. It's kind of hard as a non-draft aficionado without a hot take to hear that they take the best pitcher in the draft and say, oh, man, I have a problem with that. But that's why I know my guy Jacob over here, I know Elliot, I know some others have some interesting takes about this particular pick. It's not the end of the world. The Reds come away with the number one pitcher in this draft. But with the number 2 overall pick, did they maximize the value with this pick by taking the number 1 pitcher in this draft? Because just because you take the number 1 pitcher in this draft, is he, a type of franchise type of pitcher that you look at and say, oh, yeah, they cannot go wrong with this particular pick? We'll start with Jacob because I know that you were not going in this direction. I saw your tweet last night, Elliot. So I'll start with you two right off the bat. How do you guys feel about this draft pick? Number 1 pitcher in the draft. This is a team that already has Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green, and Andrew Abbott's been a star, and Spires is looking like he's producing right off the bat. How do you feel about this Chase Burns pick, who many believe could potentially be already pitching for this Reds team not even a full calendar year from now?
Look, I'd be lying if I said I was super excited about drafting Chase Burns. I really wanted Charlie Condon or Travis Bazzana, and I thought at 2 we were going to draft one of them. But
explain who they are real quick. Condon, so the other two.
Yeah, so Travis Bazzana, second baseman, played a little bit of outfield at Oregon State. He's the best bat in the class. He had a crazy year in the Cape Cod League a couple years ago with a wooden bat, which is why a lot of people put him at number 1 because he's played with that kind of baseball before. He's a great player. And then Charlie Condon out of Georgia broke the single-season home runs record. He won the Golden Spikes Award, which is the Heisman of college baseball, if you will. And everyone expected the two of them to be the number 1 and number 2 pick, but the Reds went a different direction. The Reds took Chase Burns, and I think it is a good pick. I think the Reds have really focused the organization in the last couple of years that you're going to draft and develop pitchers, and then you're going to go sign bats. And I think that's a much more feasible way to operate in Great American Ballpark. It's going to be tough to negotiate pitchers to come to such a small ballpark. You'll be able to sign some hitters. So I think drafting pitchers and signing hitters is a good way to go. And Chase Burns is a great pitcher. I think he's gonna contribute to this team far quicker than anyone else in this draft class. I think he's going to be in the majors before anyone else that got picked last night. I don't think that'd be a surprise to anyone. And the people that think Condon was this slam dunk, no doubt pick, he was probably the flashiest pick of this draft class, but there was concerns about how his power would translate. He doesn't walk a lot. He had 2 great years, but before that, he wasn't very great at the plate. So there was reasonable concerns about Condon. So if the Reds really thought Burns was that much better, I have no problem with the pick. I think Chase Burns is going to contribute to this team really, really soon. And Hunter Green, Lodolo, Abbott, Lauder, and Chase Burns is an incredible starting 5 if they all pan out.
Now, before I hand it off to Elliot, you had a tweet last night that also got me thinking a little bit, too, about, okay, you look at some of the prospects that they already have in the system now that have kind of not taken off this year. They haven't been great this year. Could the fact that Lauder has not been as dominant this year as what he was last year, or even as what he was beginning to start the season? I mean, for the Dragons, he started out super hot. He's regressed since then. You think maybe that played a role in their decision to increase the urgency to take the top pitcher in this draft to maybe make up in case they miss with those guys in the system?
Yeah, I think that had something to do with it. Connor Phillips has been so bad. I don't even know what league he's in. What is he, in the Fun League?
He's in Florida or Arizona Complex.
Yeah, they call it the Fun League. You just go out there, you play some golf in the mornings, you just have fun. I think it was what that movie Summer Catch was about. I'm pretty sure that's the league he's in. And then you take a look at Rhett Lauder, and though he's somebody that's, again, very early on in his career, this is so early, hasn't looked great. And you look at Chase Petty, and he hasn't been great either. So you're probably looking at like, all right, well, these are our depth guys. These are our guys going forward. Maybe we go with somebody, another pitcher, just to help bolster it in case those guys don't work. I think it absolutely had something to do with this pick. It's not the pick I wanted because I think most Reds fans think about the MLB draft. Most casual Reds fans think the MLB draft is like the NFL draft. You draft a guy and you want him up right away. Just not how it works. And I'm not as, I don't have an intelligent take on this like Jacob does. Jacob watches college baseball. He knows these guys. I said very openly last week, I don't really know too much about any of them. But if you want my honest opinion, I think it's a fine pick. If you're going to take the best player at their position with the number 2 overall pick, I'm not going to get mad. I was confused by the pick because I think our outfield depth isn't great in the organization. But saying that, I have no issue taking a pitcher that could be very good. 191 strikeouts in, 100 innings? So that's outrageous. He's doubling up the strikeouts to innings. So,
and anyone that points to the home run totals at Wake Forest, it's a 310 left field and a 300 right field. So 9 of his 14 home runs last year were at Wake Forest Stadium, which is by far the most hitter-friendly ballpark in the Power 5.
Yeah, in home runs, again, I don't have an issue with the home run thing. Andrew Abbott, I feel like, gives up a lot of home runs as well.
That's right.
Most of them solo shots. I don't care if you give up 3 home runs in a game if they're all solo shots. So just my thought.
So, and I'll bring Reed and Jimmy into this too, because I'm curious if either of you guys have looked into this, and I should have looked at. Oh yes, sorry.
No, I was giving you a 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. So we'll use this as a tease. I'm curious too. What is the most? Is it pitching? What is the most expensive position in baseball, or is it more individual than it is the actual position? So, like, going if the Reds, who are limited on funds as they always operate, is it smarter to load up on youth pitching? Because it's a lot easier to go find some productive outfielders or whoever as far as that's concerned. Could that play a role in this too? Because they're looking at the fact that, okay, McClain he's pretty much our guy. Ellie is our guy. Reece very early. Only a week into his run, but he looks promising. So already starting to think ahead to the dollars, the limited dollars that this team pretends to operate with. So we'll talk about that more when we come back. Again, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner. We got Reed, Jimmy, Elliott, and Jacob hanging out with you here today on this Monday. We'll be right back. Sports on YouTube, and of course, if you're listening to this in Dayton, that means you're doing it on 1410 ESPN Radio, so we appreciate that. We opened up the show, all reaction to the Reds' second overall pick yesterday, or the number 2 overall pick in the first round, Chase Burns. They take the pitcher, the number 1 pitcher available in this draft. Again, a pitcher from Wake Forest, and that's what has a lot of people talking. We don't talk a lot about Major League Baseball's draft, but when you have the number 2 pick and you're a team like the Cincinnati Reds, who seems to be on the cusp of something really special, right? Especially when you seem to added another piece to this deep youth movement with Reece Hinds, the way he's performed. Only a small sample size of games, only a week run, but when you look at what he did in that short sample size of games, he's put himself up there record-wise with some pretty monumental names. So we'll see what the rest of the season and his career has to unfold as far as that's concerned. But the Reds take a pitcher, and there were some bigger position player names that are out there, and you start to try to kind of comb through the weeds a bit. Okay, what motivated the Reds to go this route? Because there were some names that a lot more people were talking about, Condon and others that you heard Jake and Elliott talk about. But then they go the pitching route, which you can never go wrong with pitching. We watched how bad this team was pitching for so damn long. Now, of course, they're having some staples in this rotation. Lodolo, obviously Hunter Green, first-time All-Star this year. You just look at Andrew Abbott. They seem to have the pieces, more promising pieces coming up through the system. They add another one now in Chase Burns. Reed, throwing it to you. I know I had talked to you, throwing this out there. When it comes to putting a roster together, in football, it's quarterback. You start to look at the more expensive positions. Baseball, what is that mindset when it comes to baseball? Does that play a role in why the Reds said, pitching is probably the most expensive as far as getting an impact guy? Does that play a role in this as they're starting to plan ahead as far as where these limited dollars could potentially go?
No, there's not a distinguishable difference between contracts and like a frontline starter. It costs about the same as an everyday shortstop. Those things are pretty. Think of it like recruiting though. When it comes to the Cincinnati Reds, it's hard because of Great American Ballpark being the most hitter-friendly park in the league. It's hard for the Reds to coerce or to recruit a frontline pitcher to come for a couple of years, because once again, they are money strapped, so they can't sign an 8-year deal. They can get guys for 2-3 years. It's hard for the Reds to convince a pitcher to come to Great American Ballpark knowing that their numbers are going to be inflated, similar to how it's hard for the Rockies to do that. It's much easier for the Reds to convince a hitter to come here, like a free agent hitter, be like, hey, you can come here, you can have the best years of your career right here at Great American Ballpark. You get a lot of home runs here. So to answer your question, it's not so much that it costs more money for pitchers or anything like that. It's just harder for the Reds to recruit frontline pitching here because of the park they play in. I'll say this about the draft, because I tweeted this out yesterday. I get on X, and for some reason, Reds fans are always in an uproar about something. And in my approximation, more often than not, when they're in an uproar, they'll probably end up being wrong. So I see they're in an uproar about Chase Burns. If you have an opinion on the Reds, who they picked, a very strong opinion, you better have watched a lot of tape. You better have watched a lot of film. You better have seen Chase Burns pitch. You better have seen Condon hit. Like, you have better have an educated opinion on this, because I guess you just don't have to have an opinion on everything. You don't always have to have an opinion. And I know we do sports talk, and I don't want to do the Wizard of Oz, who's behind the rope, who's behind the thing. But it's okay to acknowledge that the MLB draft is so important, because it is. It's so important. But you don't have to be super opinionated one way or the other about who they pick. Sometimes you can just go, well, they took Chase Burns. He's a fantastic pitcher. He's the best pitcher in the draft, and then just move on. Hopefully it works out in a couple years. That's okay to do. You don't have to have a strong opinion. The Reds are the dumbest team in the league because they took Burns instead of Condon. You don't have to do that. And I see everyone on Twitter doing that.
Yeah, I saw the fire Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll and his goons. They've come out of their hole and they're here to tank the Reds. Like I've never put too much stock into the MLB draft. First of all, I've never really cared about it. I've never watched the MLB draft. I don't plan to watch the MLB draft anytime soon. I usually care about if they have a decent pick. I'll read about it if somebody would like to make articles or if Nick Kirby has a show with Bryce Spalding and Trace, I'll watch what they have to say and I'll get my opinions from them. It's just I've never really cared because I know it's such a long road to get to the show. And I've never been a fan of that whole process. I've never been a prospect guy. And like Reed just said, the draft is important. That road to the show is important. The prospect game is very, very important. It's how the Astros It's how the Astros have been good. It's how the Orioles have been good. And the Reds have unfortunately missed on quite a few draft picks. Not lately. They've done pretty well since 2017. Yeah. Since 2017, the Reds have been pretty good, and that's why they
paid Hunter Green that year with the number 2
yep.
overall pick. So
and that's why you're seeing the Reds have success this season, or I guess not technically, but coming into this year, it's why we thought we would have had success had everybody stayed healthy, yada yada yada. But I will say this: the people who are saying fire Nick Kroll, take a look at some of our best arms in the minors. They haven't been pitching well. Why not take another guy that I'm looking statistically has been pretty damn good? So I have no issues with it. I'm not mad. I was confused by it because, again, I don't have like a real genuine take on this because, again, I'm not informed on this subject. But everybody on X.com for the past month and a half, 2 months, 3 months,
we lost a little power there for a second, but we're back up.
That's
we're,
right.
We're back up and rolling. Again, Reds take Chase Burns, the number 1 pitcher in yesterday's MLB draft. Of course, they had the number 2 overall pick. They take the best pitcher in the draft. There were some bigger name positional players that a lot of Reds fans wanted. But basically, to sum up, before I hand it back off to Jacob here, the draft for baseball is always just a wild one because I get why we have hot takes when it comes to the NFL draft. We watch so much college football, right? And in college football, I mean, that's why the NFL is king, is because they have the ultimate feeder system that they don't have to invest a dime into. These guys are coming into the league and they're ready-made products. I'm not saying that they're finished products, but they're ready-made products. You're going to see guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. just come in and absolutely tear it up. You're seeing, I mean, one reason that the NFL has gotten so popular too is because quarterbacks no longer come in and they need 2 to 3 years to develop. They're coming in and maybe not immediately MVP level type of players, but they're coming in and making immediate impacts. We saw that with Joe Burrow. You saw the impact of C.J. Stroud last year and what he means to that Houston Texans organization. With baseball, I mean, it's rare that you get a Skeens. It's rare that you get a Paul Skeens where you see an immediate, payoff on your investment. And I think, so what Reed talked about too, yes, people aren't watching college baseball. The product is not as accessible and the intrigue is not there as much as what it is for the other sports. But at the same time, even if people did watch a lot of college baseball, let's say that Chase Burns was a household name across the country and we're excited that the Reds have him. We felt excited when the Reds got Hunter Green. And look how, I mean, it took a few years before he got called up to the main roster. So it's just one of those things where I think people aren't as into it because, well, they're impatient. I'm impatient. I'm not going to get excited about Chase Burns, who may not make an immediate impact. Might be different in this particular situation, but I know you're different. You knew more about these particular players, Jacob, as far as that's concerned, as far as the options that the Reds had at number 2.
Yeah, if it's not going to be one of those top 2 guys in Condon or Bazana, I'm very happy that it is Burns. Burns is, without a doubt, the best pitcher in the draft. There was a lot of talk about us reaching for the Arkansas pitcher Hagen Smith or Jack Caglione, the Florida two-way player. And personally, either one of those would have been a nightmare scenario. I don't like to put too much weight into the draft because, like these guys have said, I do watch a little bit of college baseball, but I'm not going to act like I've watched a ton of Chase Burns starts or every Charlie Condon at bat. So, it is just based off of mostly looking at stats and everything like that. But the other thing that's important to recognize is it's much easier to project pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, college players are playing on much smaller fields, much different dimensions with metal bats against a much wider discrepancy of pitcher skill. The pitchers that are good in college baseball, a lot of them are very good. And then you play against guys a lot of the time that are not even close to MLB level talent. And that's when a lot of these guys pad a lot of their stats is on those, midweek games as opposed to against the Friday or Saturday starter for some of these teams. So, Chase Burns profiles very well. I'm glad they didn't reach. I saw some people saying that Burns was a reach. I don't think he is at 2. I think he would have went 3 or 4 had they not taken him at 2. So it's not a reach. I think it's a good pick. And honestly, we'll just see. I think that's the most sensible take to have at this point is we'll see.
Just wait. I think, and again, it's tough to ask a fan base to give patience. Have patience. We're gonna develop these guys. We're gonna hope they're gonna be good, and down the road you'll see them, and the Reds will be. It's hard to say that to a fan base who's experienced no success in 3 decades. It's brutal. But unfortunately, that's how the world works. That's how this league works. It's why so many teams have been good, because they've had the ability to be patient. And the Reds, unfortunately, they've done things the right way for, 5 years now? We're going on 4 years now. Have a little bit more patience, and hopefully it works. Because if it doesn't work, I don't know. What is it going to change for the Reds? I still wake up and I know they're going to lose every season they play in. It's just being a negative fan. Just being a negative fan, baby. So this draft doesn't really affect my opinion one way or the other. They're all what's the word we called Mims? He's a project.
Yeah.
Every player you draft in the MLB draft's a project.
The Reds did make 2 other picks last night, though.
What?
The Reds did make 2 other picks last night.
Yep.
Tyson Lewis, a high school shortstop. He was projected to go in the top 35 or so, top 40. So a really good value pick there. He's great tools, but 17, 18-year-old player again.
We'll see
Who
in 9
knows?
years.
And then Luke Holman goes 71. He was another pitcher projected to go in the top 40. He went to Alabama and then transferred to LSU. So SEC stuff, a really promising pitcher there. So 3 really exciting picks last night for the Reds. I know everyone's hung up on Burns, but it seemed like a good night all around for the Reds.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea of drafting high school players. I know Elliot was kind of making fun of me last night because
Elliot,
the Tigers took a high school player.
I'm sorry.
But I know Reed and I have talked a lot about if a player comes up when he's like 20 or 21, like he's definitely going to be good. And when they're in high school, they're usually 17 or 18, especially if they're a bat, they'll get some time at an early age to transition to the wooden bat, which I think is a big thing in development there. And I think I always root for those guys to come up sooner, because if they come up soon, I'm very confident that they're going to be really good. And it sounds like if that second round guy can come up soon, I think
I like the sentiment, but I personally despise drafting high school players.
Yeah. When you draft a high school, you are right, Jimmy. You are right about when a young guy. Look at the pantheon of players that have come up when they're 19, 20, 21 years old. Almost across the board, very good ball players. The problem with drafting high school players is they are incredibly underdeveloped. They might have the skills, they might have the tools, but you don't know how they're going to deal with, a little bit of failure, because they're probably batting 600 in high school. They're probably hitting 30 home runs, or they're pitching and they give up 1 earned run all season. So you don't know how they're going to deal with playing top-tier talent. So it is very scary drafting a high school player. But if you do get it, you do get them longer. You don't have to worry about when they come up when they're 24 years old or 23. You do get them when they're 21 or 20 years old. It's just a much harder thing to predict. And most teams know this. This is why college picks are becoming more of the norm, and very rarely are people taking a high school player very early on in the draft.
One thing I'm curious about, too, because we talk NIL a lot and how that impacts college basketball, college football. You have to think, too, and not every school, especially if you're a basketball school, the majority of your funds will be going towards your basketball program, right? Football schools, they're not looking to share a lot of their collective donations with the other sports, right? But for those schools that do invest into it, I know that Texas A&M is a program that invests a lot of NIL dollars into their college baseball program. Tennessee, ironically enough, the Haslams, they invest a ton of money into that program. That's wild whenever I learned that. But that's a program that NIL-wise truly values their baseball program. So if you are a elite high school talent that wants to go right to the majors right off the bat. I think now college seems like a more interesting option because now now you're going to financially benefit from going the college route. It may take a couple years for this to kind of play out a bit, but I do think that college baseball, although it doesn't get the same attention as football and basketball, I think NIL is definitely going to impact college baseball more than what we are going to give that sport credit for. And I think for, like you talked about the high school talent, it just made more sense. If you could get a chance to get drafted, just go straight to the pros. Now you don't have to go that route if you don't want to. You can go get paid well if you're a top prospect going into college, and then, of course, get coached up there. So it'll be interesting, nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, like, the draft is important for the long term and development of an organization, and organizations who are able to develop players win more often than not, and there are a lot of organizations that don't do that well. But like, I feel like for me, there are so many rounds in the MLB draft, and I don't watch it. I don't really watch college baseball that much outside of Notre Dame. So like, I'll see some of these guys come through every once in a while, but it's just hard to really get into a draft when you're probably not going to see that guy for at least 2 to 3 years. But with the Chase Burns thing that I do think is intriguing is what Jacob was saying is he has a chance to be up really fast because of his stuff that he has, and he's a very developed pitcher. And I think that is more exciting as a Reds fan. If he is able to come up very fast, then you'll be able to see the results sooner. Whereas you might be kicking yourself 3-4 years down the line if Condon's hitting 40 home runs a year.
Certainly doesn't help that he went to Colorado.
Yeah,
I mean, of all the places for him to go, a guy that we're worried about not panning out in the majors, of course he lands in Colorado. I'm sure he's going to hit 90
like Angel
home runs.
Reece of Major League Baseball, stat padding over there with I'm just saying. But
what a wild,
that was such a wild stray. That was out of nowhere.
I mean, we're talking about baseball.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you get some out of Angel Reece.
Stat pattern. Just saying, anytime I can find a way just to angle it in there to take a shot here,
How much real estate does Angel Reece have in that noggin of yours?
I mean,
way
it's
too
a
much.
big house.
Way
up there,
too
yeah.
much.
All of it.
I literally, way too much. Just saying, way too much. All right, we're gonna talk WNBA. No, I'm joking. All right, so the Reds wrap up the first half of the regular season, of course, and it's what?
They wrapped it up with a 5-2 week, Elliot.
5-2. I mean, and they got the number 1 pitcher.
27-21 since some random date in May.
I'm not. If you're asking me if I'm excited about the Reds being 5-5 during the easiest stretch of their season, nah, I'm not. It was a disappointing, in my opinion, way to end the first half when you could have gotten a couple games up in the wild card in the division. You could have ended that better. You could have gotten close to 500. You're 3 games back, or 3 games below 500, excuse me. So the season isn't over. You're still mathematically alive. You can say whatever you want.
Have you looked ahead, though?
At the end of correct.
I mean, that schedule coming out of the break is real juicy.
Well, at the end of the day, it's just like you expect them to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and they didn't do that. I know they might have done it this season so far, I guess, for the most part. But during this stretch specifically, I would have liked to see the Reds take 7 of 10, win at least 6. 6 was the bare minimum. Getting swept by the Tigers, you can't have it happen. Just can't happen. And this is what they are. There's only so many ways I can say this is what the Reds are. But when you go 5-5 during the easiest home stretch of the season, I don't expect them to do anything else for the rest of the year. I expect them to be right around this 500, this 500 mark, and they will finish the season below 500. I'd bet a large amount of money on it.
Yes, sadly.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So I just want to pose a question to you because people have seemed to be freaking out about getting swept by the Tigers, but also a few days before that they swept
so
the Yankees.
long ago.
So you get games somewhere.
That Tiger sweep was like a month and a half ago, and Jimmy brings it up every day.
He likes to remind us.
He brought it up.
But that's the thing. They sweep the Yankees, you get swept by the Tigers.
But you said they were going to
You
get swept
sweep,
by the
you get
Yankees.
swept, you sweep, you get swept. It's just the back and forth, inconsistent play of the Cincinnati Reds that makes this so frustrating to watch. Because you see it in spurts. You see it in spurts where they can compete, where they show up offensively, where their pitching is dynamite. And they look like a complete team that could be fighting for a playoff spot. But then they just throw it all down the tank the next week, and it's like, what have we really accomplished here? Nothing. So, yeah, I'm disappointed with how that homestand finished out. Congrats. They beat the Rockies. They beat the Marlins, quite literally the two worst teams in the sport outside of the White Sox. So I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to take from it. The only thing I can take from it is that Reece Hinds has come up and he's been electric. That's the only thing I took away from this past week.
To Jimmy's point, though, real quick, because I know what he's saying. You expected in that 6-game span of the 3 games with the 3 games with the Yankees and the 3 games with the Tigers, if we would have heading into that Yankees series, you said the Reds are getting swept, right? Then we'd head into that Tigers series, not expecting to sweep the Tigers, but 2-1 at the very least, taking 2-1. But technically in that 6-game span, the amount of wins technically came about that we were technically kind of expecting, right? You expected three losses, you expected 2 to 3 wins. You got him. To Jimmy's point, he's saying, does the order matter? They still came away in that stretch with about the same amount of wins that you had anticipated based on the expectations heading into that Yankees series.
Right. Sure, but I'd also like to get over the fact that let's just develop upon a win every once in a while. You win a series against the Yankees, let's win the next series. Let's win the series after that. Let's go on a little bit of a hot streak. They don't have that in them. They don't. They were one 12-game winning streak away from being a disaster last year. And then this year, 7-game winning streak helped, and then you match the 7-game winning streak with an equally bad losing streak. So it's like we can't keep going back and forth. Yeah, technically, if you would have told me 3-3 against the Yankees and the Tigers, would I be happy? Sure, I guess. But that's cherry picking a little bit on what happened. So the Tigers aren't a good team. I'd say that with love and respect. If you want to say they're good, I'll say they're competitive. They're not the worst team, but they're competitive. And the Reds should be able to at least take 1 game from the Detroit Tigers. They didn't, and it's going to hurt them going forward.
You mentioned Reece Hinds. Obviously, the emergence of him definitely puts a little feel-good vibe out there for this team heading into the back half of the season, just because, run production has been a real problem for this team. I don't care that they have the positive run differential. I mean, a lot of that you could just piecemeal. I mean, they're a very good pitching team, and they've had some big offensive outburst games, but overall, averaging it out, this isn't a team that you feel comfortable with, assuming that they're going to go put up a lot of runs to give their very good pitching staff a lot of run support as far as that's concerned. But with that being said, heading into the back half of the season, we all feel like we're not going to see Matt McClain, right? I think we could all agree on that. But if they come out hot and now you have another weapon like Reece Hinds and then Ellie continue playing at the rate he is, I know Stevenson got hot for a little bit there, especially with the power. So if things start trending in that direction, he at least gives them another weapon, another piece that you could say, man, now you get McClain, now you have L.A. Stevenson's playing well. India's continued to play at a high level if he's still on the team post-deadline, of course. This team, I mean, we have no clue. I can't wait for after July 30th. That way they could just put us out of our mental misery so we know what to truly expect. Because until I see what they do with India, until I see what they do at the deadline, I'm going to be going back and forth. One day I'm going to be like, oh, no, they're selling everything and it's on to next year. But then I see how explosive they look, and especially with the emergence of Reece Hinds, where I'm like, maybe they might kind of pump the brakes on this idea of not being aggressive at the deadline, being aggressive towards pushing them closer to a playoff spot. Only 3.5 back in the Central. To me, we'll talk about this in our buy-sell here later on. I'm not sure how bulletproof the top of the Central is at this point, so we'll see what happens.
Brewers are going into the All-Star break, I think winning 3 of their last 7, or 3 of their last 10, 3-7 in their last 10. I think the Cubs are cooled off a little bit. They were hot. They ended on a bad note against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a little bit hot.
They split that series.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're still red hot. Yeah, red hot.
Still hot.
Still hot.
He said red hot.
Hottest team in baseball, though?
I like it.
Not the hottest team in baseball. I don't know. I just don't get – I don't want to make myself feel good that the Reds went 5-5 in that homestand. I can't do it.
Reds have a good about month coming up after the break. I mean, I don't like to look ahead. The last time we looked ahead at a 10-game series, it went 5-5. But Reds come out of the break in Washington, 3 games against the Nationals. Series you would certainly like to win. Then you go to Atlanta, which will obviously be tough. And then Tampa on the road, and then you come back home. Tampa hasn't been very good this year, not what they were expecting. Then you go Cubs and Giants at home, both winnable series. Then you have 4 against the Marlins. So, that's a lot of games right there that are all winnable games, winnable series. We know how unpredictable this team is, and we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, in that roughly 20-game stretch. But
10 and 10.
If you can win,
There's only so many.
yeah.
I'm not going to predict them to have a winning record during that.
No,
Certainly not.
I mean, you can't at this point, but you'd love to see them seize the opportunity.
I think the Reds have a bottom third easiest, like they have a top 10 easiest schedule in the second half.
Yeah.
And I think most of the NL Central does because
Probably.
all the teams are below 500, like most of the National League. But yeah, it is much easier. You've played most of the good teams already. You played the Phillies. You played the Dodgers. Like you've gotten those out of the way. So what else is there to conquer? So it is easier in the second half of the year.
All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, we'll get to Elliot's headlines, and we have Buy or Sell coming up around the corner. Don't go anywhere. More Off the Bench here on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. All right, and we are back off and rolling here on a Monday. Justin Kenner, we got Reed sitting in for Casey today. We got Jimmy, Elliott, and Jacob all hanging out here today on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I never did ask how all your weekends went. How was your weekend? How was everybody's weekend?
I don't think anyone's weekend was as good as Elliott's.
I had a good weekend. I went to 2 concerts.
Nice.
It had a very fun time.
You finagled your way to the front row of one of them.
That's what you got to do, dude.
So I had lawn tickets for the Friday night concert. It was REO Speedwagon and Train. And we get there, we're sitting up in the lawn for it's probably about 15 minutes until Train comes on stage. And this very nice lady comes over to my dad and I are like, hey, are you guys big fans of Train? We're like, yeah, we are.
Lie.
Well, I am. My dad probably didn't know a ton of Train's songs, but he knew enough. And I'm like, yeah, I am. She's like, well, my kid, it's too loud down by the stage. So he doesn't like it down there. So we're going to sit up here, but you can have my tickets if you want. I'm like, sure. All right. So I go down. I'm like, where are these? And I ask the usher, where are these? And they keep pushing me down. And it's 3 rows back from the stage. It was absolutely incredible.
Videos looked awesome.
Thank you. It was legit the closest I've been to a stage ever.
So when I was young, it was LeBron's rookie year. Okay, and it was my birthday, and my aunt had got me and my friends, and she took my brother with us. My brother hates basketball. I don't even know why she took him, but he cried, and he got to go. It ticked me off, right? So we get there. It's LeBron's first road game ever. They're playing the Indiana Pacers, Reggie Miller, Jermaine O'Neal. It was that Ron Artest. It was that group. Now, we're sitting up pretty high for this, right? And my aunt takes my brother down because he's crying, he's bored, and all this stuff. So she's just walking him around to calm him down. And some lady sees them and says, oh, hey, we're leaving. We can't stay for the second half. Do you want these tickets? And my aunt says, sure. Yeah. She goes, yeah, they're down there. So I thought, okay, front row. My brother, and we're all the way up at the top. We're here for my birthday. But my aunt was like, I'm not walking all the way up there just to get you to walk you all the way. And, it's not like, I'm a 34. So LeBron was a rookie in 2003. So it's not like these phones, it's not like cell service is really great. I didn't have a cell phone at that age. So yes, I'm up there in the nosebleeds watching LeBron do his thing as a rookie against the Indiana Pacers and Reggie Miller. And my brother, who hates basketball, is the front row at LeBron's first road game ever as a rookie. I'm still salty to this day, all these years later.
That's hilarious.
So, but yeah, I like that.
It was a good listen.
Especially when you don't plan it and it just, you go, you're gonna have a good time no matter what. But then it enhances the night. So cool.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Luke Bryan, on the other hand, was again great vibes.
How many margaritas?
One song. It's one margarita, two
margaritas,
three margaritas. Then you take a shot.
Right, and then 4 margaritas, 5.
5. You're right. And so there was a lot of margaritas. He did bring out a giant margarita prop.
Nice.
That was very cute. I knew. We're not going to get into politics, but I'm going to get into politics. Just a little bit. So
this was minus 10,000.
A certain event happened on Saturday, and when the event happened, I knew going into that Luke Bryan concert, it was going to be going into one of the craziest parties I've ever seen. And it certainly was. Luke Bryan brought it up like 15 minutes into the show, and I want to say 7 USA chants started abruptly. He legit took a 15-minute break from his music. And we just started chanting USA. So
and everyone in unison.
Everyone in unison. It was
hell yeah.
It was a glorious time. It was a glorious time.
I haven't seen Luke Bryan. I'm gonna see. We've talked about this. Luke Combs. Looking forward to that.
Can't wait.
Coming up here less than a month.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
There's that. All right, we welcome you back again off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Again, hope everyone had a great weekend. And now, this part of the show, it's now time for Elliot's headlines.
Oh wow, we're still doing that.
Oh yeah.
I was unprepared for that. Here we go.
Boo.
I was a wild thing.
I dropped that in the tease, right? Did I say that?
You did.
I said we had Elliot's headlines coming up. My apologies.
There will be no backtrack. This is a bare bones show.
Yeah,
That's fine. That's fine.
Elliot's headlines.
Elliot's
Elliot's logged out of his Google.
As I'm logged out. That's how.
Take care of that real quick. So
That's how unprepared I was. I got logged out of the Google because I was away from it. I'm back in.
Well, the wild thing is I'm like, well, you had time during the commercial break to get that all pulled up, but no. Radio, 5-minute commercial break here on Off the Bench.
No commercial.
5-second commercial break. So I could stall more.
No, I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Elliot's headlines, everybody.
We'll start with the Reds. We kind of talked about it, but we'll talk about it. The Reds finished up the homestand 5-5 after a loss to the Miami Marlins yesterday. They fell 3-2 in the finale. They could only muster up 4 hits. 4 hits. The only hit that mattered in the game was an Elly De La Cruz 2-run home run. Another blast. Elly De La Cruz ends the first half on a 6-game hit streak. He has hit a home run in now back-to-back games. Reece Hinds time. Reece Hinds didn't record a hit yesterday for the first time this season. His first bust.
He's done.
His first 7 MLB games, he has 11 hits, 9 of those being for extra bases, 5 of those being for home runs. He also added 2 stolen bases and 11 RBIs just for the fun of it. Santiago Espinal. He had a hit in yesterday's game. He is now on a 6-game hitting streak. He has 2 home runs and 6 RBIs during that span. Nick Lodolo, he looked solid at the start yesterday, but it tailed off to become, I guess, somewhat of a disappointing performance as the fly gets in my mouth here. Final stat line, 4 2/3, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, while walking 4, striking out 4 as well. Fernando Cruz gave up the game-losing run. Cruz has now allowed 8 earned runs in his last 7 innings of work, which spans over the course of 11 games. Tough for all-star Fernando Cruz.
Yeah, he knew we were about to ship him off, so we wanted to make sure he could stay in Cincinnati.
That ERA just keeps rising for my guy. I would bet they trade him. I would bet a lot of money on it. The Reds selected, as we mentioned, Chase Burns out of Wake Forest. I didn't see too much of his highlights yesterday, but I did see the clip of him celebrating.
Yeah,
after
he's
a
an energetic
strikeout.
fella.
I like that. I like that a lot. Around the league, the Orioles walk off the Yankees on a brutal defensive bottom half of the 9th, 6-5 the final. I don't know if you guys saw that. There was 2 outs. There was a shortstop error, and then in left field, Verdugo misplayed a ball, and I think he tripped while trying to catch a routine fly ball. Missed it. Orioles win. Very, very funny.
Judge hit 2 home runs in that series, and I think they walked him every other time he came to the plate. I mean, it was just a walk fest for Aaron Judge.
I love that. The Athletics, they crushed the Phillies 18-3. Lawrence Butler hit 3 home runs. Brent Rooker hit 2 home runs. And Seth Brown also hit 2 home runs. I don't think I've ever seen that many multi-home runs.
The Oakland Athletics, the only team to score 18 runs this year, 19 runs this year, and 20 runs this year.
You ruined my
Offensive
stat.
juggernaut.
Was that your stat?
Yeah. I had a stat all written out.
Oh, no.
So the Athletics scored 20 on May 4th, 19 on July 6th, and 18 yesterday. That is the top 3 most scored runs in a game this season. They sit at 37 and 61. Yikes.
It's a lot of wrong.
If they could score 20 runs more often, they'd be better.
That's right.
Can I say something about the Athletics real quick?
Sure.
We have given their broadcaster a hard time on this show.
Rightfully so.
I feel bad for her because I get on TikTok
Oh, it's
and
bad.
it's bad.
It's bad.
They get AI and they just write a script. And like, there's people that probably see some of those and think that they're real. Think that they're real. They are terrible. They are the worst things on the internet right now.
They're very
I feel
funny.
bad for her.
Yeah,
I legitimately feel bad for her.
It's reached a point now where it's getting problematic.
She's so bad at it. I mean, just so bad.
I have a take that I bet you that some of the things that we were making fun of her for at the beginning of the year weren't even real to begin with. I bet you we got duped.
No.
I bet you we got duped.
No.
At least one time, because we've shown about 5 of them on this show. I bet you at least one of them was a great duping.
I choose not to believe that.
No, I don't think so.
Wouldn't be the first time we've been duped.
That's fair.
Red Sox beat the Royals 5-4. Rafael Devers broke a seat in one of his home runs yesterday. Rays shut out the Guardians 2-0. 2 solo shots were the difference. The Rockies beat the Mets 8-5 in the finale to avoid a sweep. The Tigers, they came back to beat the Dodgers yet again in the bottom half of the 9th to win the series. How about that, Jim?
Ninth Inning Ball Club.
That's pretty sick. When they scored,
Yeah.
what was it, 5 runs?
Yeah, they scored it was Saturday. They were down 9-4, and they scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 9th to force extras. I was kind of frustrated that they didn't score 6 in the bottom of the ninth because we always
Can't
lose in
ever be
extras.
happy.
Yeah.
But they won, and they did it again yesterday. They were down 3-2 in the bottom of the ninth and bunted across the game-winning run.
Imagine if you would have had a decent pitcher going in Game 1. Maybe you would have swept the Dodgers.
I know. And I was very beaten up on Friday. I was
Very
mad.
beaten up.
I was visibly upset at the Reds game. I was so mad.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy went full shutdown, though.
Yeah. Jacob likes to make fun of me when
I do.
when they lose games that I feel like they should win. I really shut down.
It was Tigers-Dodgers, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know, but I thought
You're not allowed to get
I
upset
thought they
about
should have
losing
won.
to the Dodgers.
But don't let the Tigers get hot. They've won eight of their last 10, and thank you to the Reds for getting the Tigers hot.
There it
because
is.
They're hot.
I was waiting for it. There it
This
is.
guy.
Wasn't that 2 months ago when they played?
Yeah, something like that.
2 months. It's not a month. It's 2 months.
Yeah. Just get it longer every time we say it.
Cubs, they win the finale of their series. They won 8-3 yesterday. Morel and PCA each had multiple home runs. Good for them.
Yeah, first time Christopher Morel had a multi-home run game, which I think is very shocking. Yeah, the Cubs, Dansby Swanson's starting to heat up a little bit. If Dansby Swanson and Christopher Morel start hitting better, this team's pretty good. So that's what it is.
Pirates take care of the White Sox, winning 9-4. They go into the break on a 4-game winning streak. Brewers blow out the Nationals 9-3. Lose the series, as I mentioned, they head into the break, losing 7 of their last 10. WNBA. The Fever came back to beat the Lynx yesterday, 81-74. Caitlin Clark finished with 17 points, 6 assists. She was 5 for 17 from the floor and had 6 turnovers.
It's all right.
FCC, they lost to the Charlotte whatevers. Good for them. I don't know.
Charlotte FC.
Charlotte FC.
They get so creative in the MLS.
Yeah.
Just got to give them a round of applause for those teammates.
I wish that more leagues did that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to just root for the Cincinnati Baseball Club.
Yeah. Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah,
I
think
love
that'd
the
be. I
Washington
think that's
football
great.
team.
I think more teams should do that.
I loved the Washington football team.
I loved it too. WFT. Spain beats England 2-1 in the Euro final. Argentina 1-0 in the Copa final. So everybody, there's a bit in this show now that Reed is the biggest Spain soccer fan in the world. So I received texts yesterday. Oh, Spain, viva, viva, viva. So like, you know what? I'm just gonna put $10 down on England to win this
As
game.
if we didn't even fight the war.
Just to match their bit, and my bit, as always, lost. So very tough to see. By the way, I don't know if anybody watched that game. I turned it on for the last 5 minutes. When they fell 2-1, England marched down the field, had a corner kick. They had like 3 different chances to put the ball in the net. It was like that. You know,
it was crazy.
And you know that Sterling.
One of the defenders headed it out of the net.
Correct. It was pretty insane. I didn't watch that Copa game. Anything to talk about there? I know Lionel Messi got hurt.
Yes, Lionel Messi got hurt. The game was actually delayed 75 minutes because fans who did not have tickets were storming the gates and trampling over people, and it created a whole lot of chaos, and they delayed the game a while to try and get those people out. There were a lot of arrests made, I believe.
Wow.
I think we'll talk about that coming up, but I saw videos yesterday of fans sneaking through the ducts. Wild.
Insane.
Absolutely wild. I'll tell you what. Good for the fans of who was I think it was Argentina I saw. Or no, it was Colombia. It was Colombia. Sneaking through the ducks. Other news, Carlos Alcaraz beat Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon final in straight sets.
Back-to-back years.
Back-to-back. In the
Passing the torch?
Passing the torch.
Officially, you think?
I think so. And finally, the MLB Home Run Derby takes place tonight.
Who you got? Anyone?
Yeah, I've got Jose Ramirez. I'm cheering for Jose Ramirez hard.
Okay.
I think I'm going Teoscar.
I don't think he's going to win. I also have Teoscar, and I also have Alonso.
You got to take Alonso because you feel dumb if you
Correct.
don't, and he wins.
He's
It's like taking Scotty plus 300 in the majors.
It's what I do with Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
Exactly what I do.
I think Ramirez has the second worst odds.
Third. I thought it was
third
Teoscar.
moved?
I thought it was Teoscar, Jose, and
Teoscar was plus at least last night. Odds have been changing all day. It was
I saw
Teoscar
Bohm's a distant last.
Yeah.
distant last.
Yeah, maybe he got a rest day and now he'll be fired up and ready
Yeah,
to go.
he'd be better.
You know, more strength.
He does just hit doubles though, so
Bobby Witt's going to put on a show.
I did take Bobby Witt to the longest home run.
I think that's a good bet.
He has the longest home run of the year.
It was earlier in the chat. Someone said it was a bummer that Ellie turned turned down an invitation. Is that confirmed? Did he actually get an invite to be in
I
this
didn't see
thing?
that anywhere.
I did not.
mean,
I
see
feel
that,
like I'd be a little surprised if they invited him over.
I would be very surprised as well. That's why I was like, did he actually? I mean, that's why I was like, did I miss something? Did he actually turn that down? That gets to the point to where we've talked about that before. Like, is he a power hitter? Not necessarily. That we would love him to be more of a power hitter, but
I would say
rather,
he's a power hitter.
You know, more consistent. I think the Reds have a consistency problem. I think we've talked about that.
Yeah,
before.
I think so. I think
I think
we mentioned it once or twice.
It's a trickle down effect as far as that's concerned, but nonetheless, Elliot's headlines. Is that it?
That's it.
We got through Elliot's headlines. A couple of things to touch on the other side, plus we'll get into the Copa Chaos. I know Jimmy was talking about that a little bit ago. Probably one of the scarier scenes at a sporting event. And it's wild that it's a soccer match of all things, that the fans just could not contain themselves. It wasn't a Super Bowl. It wasn't an NFL game. It was a soccer match. We're going to talk about that when we come back around the corner. Plus, another star wide receiver in the NFL. They get a little off-season trouble ahead of camp coming up around the corner. Plus, naming rights. Why do fans get so upset about the name of a stadium? I know you Bengals fans in here can contribute to this. We'll talk about that when we come back. Again, more Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. All right, welcome back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. All right, Reed, earlier you said Cincinnati Reds fans, right? Like they always have something to complain about, right? Always upset about something.
Life.
And I think that's most sports fans and most fan bases, but I think you're onto something with the Reds, especially when it comes to the draft. We don't watch college baseball, all right? We don't even know who half these prospects are, and if you learn their names, you probably just heard them on the MLB Network or watching Chatterbox Reds and just learning the names. You don't really have a hot take to get that angry about who the Reds take, but that's sports. Every fan gets super passionate about every decision that is made around their team, even silly things like the name of a stadium. Okay, and Ohio State has a new athletic director named Ross Bjork, and he just took over in the new fiscal year. July 1st takes over, and one of the concepts that was thrown out his way was, of course, the naming rights for the shoe. Now, when I think of going to watch Ohio State play home games, it's the shoe. And I don't really care if they put a sponsorship name in front of it, but he was asked about the fact of, okay, would naming rights be something that they throw out there on the table, again, in the ever-evolving business side of the sports world? He, of course, said yes, that maybe that is something that they could look into. He's never going to say no to that because with everything changing in college athletics, you always have to be prepared to kind of adjust as you go. And, of course, people losing their minds. How dare you? It's tradition to call it the shoe. Here's the deal. I don't care what they call it. I'm going to call it the shoe. And I know with Bengals fans in here, people made a big deal about the naming rights to Paycor Stadium. Now I'm here to tell you, after a year, or how long has it been Paycor? A full year, right?
Yeah.
A full year of it being called Paycor.
2 years.
2 years? So it's just Paycor now. And it doesn't even sound weird. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't impact my experience going to watch the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. It's not like, man, that was a great game. Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. But, at Paycor, God, I'm never going back to another game again. No. Why do we let little things like this that have no impact on your experience at a game? Why do people have to complain about this? Jacob, let's say they call it the FedEx Ohio Stadium. I'm still going to call it the shoe. Are you going to still call it the shoe? Why do fans get so butthurt about all these little things that really don't impact you at all?
Yeah, if Ohio State changes the name of their stadium, I'm going to call it the shoe for probably 2 years, and then I'm going to call it whatever they name it, and we're going to be able to give that money to second and third year transfers and put the best team on the field. So I'm going to be ecstatic if Ohio State puts a name on their stadium because that's what college football has become now. It's become the same as the NFL. And when the Bengals put the name on the stadium, I said, great, that means we're going to re-sign guys like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase because we're going to have more cash to spend. It's the same thing with college. You're going to see sponsorships on the field. You're going to see sponsorships on the jerseys. You're going to see sponsorships on the stadium. And I think it's just where the sport's going. And I think it's good if you're a fan of the team to see your college leaning into the new rules, the new ways of building rosters, because that's the way you're going to be able to compete. You see schools like Clemson, Dabo Swinney not even using the transfer portal, much less putting their names on stadiums, and they're not even going to compete anymore. They're falling back by the wayside, back where they were long before they were competing for national championships. So I think if you're a fan of a program, of a college, you want your school to be doing this stuff because it's going to put them in a better spot to compete for a national championship down the line.
As Jacob knows, I'm not a huge fan of sponsoring every little piece of if sponsoring the conference, calling it a sponsored conference is so strange to me. Soon you'll call a team the sponsored team, the Cincinnati Bengals, presented by All-State or whatever you want to do. I think there is a line in the sand eventually where it's just going to annoy me, and it will become a little bit of an issue. But this changing the name of stadiums, it's genuinely good for your team. It's good for everything. If you want your team to be good, you want them to change the name of your stadium. It's just a part of the way the world works now. So I have no big issues with it whatsoever.
Yeah, when the Bengals changed it to Paycor, one of the shots people were taking at the Bengals was, oh, well, see, your team's poor, and they have to do that to pay their quarterback. And if I was a Bengals fan, what I would say back to that is, yep, and we're going to keep our quarterback. And that's a problem for you, not us. Like, right? If I was a Bengals fan, that's what I would say. I would say, who cares? Who cares where the money is coming from? I don't care if it's drug money. Take care of Joe Burrow. Maybe not drug money, but you see my point. I just don't get why people they use it to make fun of the team.
The morals don't really matter for Browns fans.
I did set you guys up pretty well.
And Ohio State fans.
Hey, whoa. No need.
So, yeah, at the end of the day, the fact that I was seeing so much, it just made me think of that, Reed, when you said that earlier about Reds fans always finding something to complain about. Of all the things Ohio State fans complain about, this should not be one of them. So,
by the way, not to change the subject too
Change
much,
the subject.
but I thought I'd mention this. Jacob's been tweeting some funny things today.
Oh,
I don't know if you follow Jacob on X.com, but I'm gonna read this one out because I just this is what he's doing during the middle of our show, Kenner.
I don't like
even
this.
paying
I don't
attention?
like this bit when it's me.
This is what Jacob just said on X.com.
You shouldn't be able to do this with people that are in the room.
Well, yeah, but I think it's funnier. It's your guys' fault for logging into that computer and staying logged in.
I thought I logged out.
Here we go. So this is from per Jacob Tissot right at 11 a.m. Just ripped a big old stanky one. Sniff. Pu. Smells like my pruno. Hashtag whack. Hashtag how is that even possible? Hashtag boy problems. Hashtag kangaroos or squirrels. Hashtag it's a northwest thing.
It's not me.
It's
You know what?
it's not.
You know what's funny?
It's not Reed
It
because
is
I know
not
who it is.
me. It is not me. I am
It's
not
not
doing
Reed,
this.
but I
What
know
do you
who it is.
mean?
I'm not doing this. Listen.
Who else is doing this?
Everything that could go wrong today over here is going wrong, so I'm trying to keep my head above water.
Who's doing this?
I don't have time to tweet from your little Twitter account, Jacob.
Oh, do we got a tweet gate going on?
Then someone's
X-gate?
doing this.
So I it's not me. I don't have access to your tweets, which means it's only Reed.
There's only one option of who it could be.
No,
And it's-
well, I can tell you right now,
It's not that option.
I will. I'll put any amount of money that I am not tweeting.
Is Jimmy over there?
So
It's
you
not
didn't,
me.
you didn't schedule any of these tweets?
I did not schedule any of these tweets. No.
Okay.
Then that means you're having boy problems.
is
like you
Case-
said, you're
Casey
tweeting.
working
Because
on vacation?
I feel like the kangaroos or squirrels.
It's
is
a Reed bit.
I feel like that's such a direct quote from what happened last Friday.
Right.
And it was only with us in the room.
What, was I in the room?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I was around here very
He
much
wasn't.
Friday.
He wasn't.
I literally wasn't in the room Friday. So take me out of it. It's not me. I can tell you, 100% that it is not me. I have not scheduled a
Who
single
does the
tweet.
chat think it is?
We'll get to the bottom of this.
I just thought I'd interrupt the show.
I,
for that.
big
I'm
time
the only one that knows who it is.
It's the biggest conspiracy
I
theory in
know
the world
it is,
right now.
I know who it is too.
I have an issue with who's logged into my Twitter if it's not on that computer.
So it's really not Reed?
No,
I'm
it's,
telling,
it's Reed.
It's not Reed.
I'm telling you without a doubt,
It is-
that
it is-
not
it's not
me.
me.
It's you, Jake.
I'll
Or
any
Jimmy.
amount
Not
of
me.
money that I can. Do you want to bet?
Yeah, I
Okay,
do.
I'll bet you $100 that I have not written or scheduled a tweet on Jacob's Twitter. Do you want to do that?
I will double down.
I'm changing my password right now. So
No, I don't. I don't want to double down because I don't know what kind of prank's going on here. Is it you?
I'm in on the bit, but it's not. It's not me.
I need to figure out where my Twitter's logged in at. If it's not Reed,
It has to be Reed though.
That's what I'm saying.
$100. $100. I'll do it right now.
But
Shake
Jimmy
your
is
hand.
so proud to be in on it. And he's
Oh,
like
this
looking
is
down at
awesome.
Jacob,
It's
like
awesome.
with his chest puffed up. Like he is so proud right now.
I love inside jokes. I'd love
to be part of
I'd
one.
love to be a part of one
my
one
bad.
day. But yeah, back to your topic that I so rudely interrupted. The
Was
sponsorship.
it you? He's the one that tweeted it.
Yeah, it's true.
that's why I don't like this bit.
The sponsorship thing. It's just everybody's gonna have to get used to it. It's just how the world works now. So.
So, by the way, the stadium rights, I don't give a rip about that. I don't like the idea of all the stuff on the jerseys, looking
Really?
like a NASCAR, like a like a race. I'm not like one. Okay, fine. but like when you start to see multiple patches and stuff, like I don't think that.
I have a bigger issue with the
didn't like
field
it.
than the jerseys.
The field
Yeah,
itself.
the field ads. I have a bigger issue with that than jerseys.
Yeah.
I didn't like if these players weren't getting paid, then I'd have an issue with the logos on the jersey itself because that's weird to me. But they're getting paid, so nobody's hiding anything anymore.
And
Money's out in the open.
Do you guys have a problem in baseball with the mound being sponsored? Have you guys seen this?
Oh yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, like,
But
does
yeah,
that
I've
bother
seen
you at
it.
all? Like, I think
I
it's
like
kind
I
of,
like when it's not actually on the mound and it glitches, like the graphic
Yeah.
glitches on the broadcast. I think that's always funny.
It is interesting to see which one is like behind home plate, which of those ads are real and which of them are just graphically put in there.
Whenever my friends and I are watching games on TV, we guess.
Yeah.
So you can usually find out after like an inning or two.
It's not like football where that yellow line, they just move it all the time.
Right.
You know?
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
the
you
fact
know?
that they wheel that blue and yellow line out onto the field and we don't
Yeah.
even notice it on the broadcast is incredible.
How soon will teams start sponsoring the actual team name? Cincinnati Bengals presented by, or just
I don't think the NFL's they don't have to do that, but I mean maybe.
I don't think we'll ever get there.
I think
in college.
I think we will.
I think we'll get there in the NFL before we get there in college. Because
I think-
college, you have to license your team name for the school,
Yeah.
unless these sports withdraw from the schools, which is a possibility.
Just possibility. Yeah.
there's already a team sponsored by a product, right? In the MLS, the Red Bulls? No?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Coaches in college basketball and football get sponsored. It'll be the
that's right. Isn't Notre
Chatterbox
Dame's head
Sports,
coaching position sponsored?
Kentucky's head coach,
Yes.
obviously.
It's named after somebody.
Xavier's head coach is sponsored. It's
I
sponsored.
assume Alabama's will be soon.
I think that if the NCAA wants to help like the mid-major schools, like to help give them some more cash, allow them to start sponsoring their own stuff. Like allow their jerseys, allow that type of stuff to happen. I know we're watching a hockey game one time and the ribbon banners are digitally altered. So like if you're there at the game, what you're seeing on the ribbon boards is not the same as what you're seeing at home. So that's extra revenue as far as a sales standpoint. I thought that was interesting. But nonetheless. All right, real quick, last thing on that too. The Big 12, them selling the sponsorship for that, as goofy as that sounds, that's actually a genius way to save the Big 12. I know we've talked about, think it's going to be the Big 2, the Big 10, and the SEC. The way to make up for the lack of TV money that the SEC and the Big 10 is getting is that naming right. Like
Right.
that's so it's like the dollars that they are getting for their media deal, the money they make on top is sponsoring the conference. That closes that gap on where they're at revenue-wise coming in between them, the Big 10, and the SEC. I don't mind it, but I'm not a fan of a team in the Big 12. I know with Cincinnati being in there, maybe that just sounds dumb, but I like the traditional Big 10 versus the SEC versus the Big 12, not the Big 10 versus the All-State 12 or whatever. It does sound
I think that sounds nonsense.
That projection of them becoming the All-State 12 is the only reason that they have the ability to negotiate with FSU and Clemson and these other big schools. Naming that conference is the only way you'll be able to draw big name schools there over the SEC and the Big 10, because without that, you will not be able to compete on TV rights deals with schools like, Cal and SMU in the ACC. And with all due respect to Cincinnati, you're not exactly a massive media market here anyway. So, adding them to the Big 12 doesn't move the needle as much, especially when losing Texas and Oklahoma. So in order to drag these other schools that are kind of in limbo now to your conference, if you're not the Big 10 or the SEC, you're going to have to do some less normal things, some more exotic ideas.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Where are we at right now at this part of the show? Is this the second to last segment or the last segment coming up?
I think that was the fourth segment. If you combine the
one
broken
and
segment
two.
with the longer second.
I think
Okay,
we're,
so
we're
we're heading
due for
into
some
the fifth.
ads.
What?
I think we're due for some ads.
Yeah, that's why I'm just making sure we're following the timeline. That's all. More Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio. We will be right back. By the way, you're doing a great job filling in for Casey. You seem like there's a lot happening over there. I mean,
Well, yeah, he's trying to produce a show and tweet for me.
It's not me. And Jimmy keeps saying that I don't know who it is. I know who it is. He showed me who the person showed me.
So the person's in the room, if they showed you, and the person's Jimmy.
It's not me.
Well, big old. No, hold on. Big old stanky one is a Casey. Casey is. But kangaroos are squirrels is such an obscure quote from Friday.
Which I was not in the room for. I was not here Friday.
I don't even how does he even remember kangaroos or squirrels?
Oh, wait, then I have an idea who this is now. Do I know this individual? I'm
I
not
would
in,
assume
I'm not
we
in
all
on you
know.
guys'
I'm
circle.
sure we
but-
all know. who
You
it
most
is.
definitely know this.
I would hope we all know.
because
who
this
it
was a
is.
conversation that was had last Friday that I was just listening to. Over
Correct.
Okay, then yeah. Ha, loser. I love inside jokes. I love inside jokes. You should be a part of one
I
someday.
mean,
dude.
there's like 2 people it could be.
Who?
Drop names, dude. Name drop.
3 people it could be.
It's not me.
Well, it's either one of them or Casey.
I don't think it's Jimmy.
I think
Jimmy.
Jimmy
Jimmy
I'm
doesn't.
not ruling out Jimmy.
Jimmy doesn't have the wit for this, so I think it's going to either
Well, no,
be.
I think Jimmy would be being fed it by Reed, and this is Reed's ability to say, no, I'm not doing
Okay,
it.
that
Is
could
my
be-
guess. My
that could be
active
true.
guess is Reed is texting Jimmy the tweets so Reed can say, I didn't do it. That's the assumption I'm working with.
I have not authored a single one of these tweets. In fact, I haven't read any of these tweets. I just was there when the process was finished.
I showed you.
Okay.
And so just giving you guys inside baseball here, which, by the way, we will go longer because of the short breakdown that we had. I told Casey to stop watching because it'll be okay, which we are okay. The show's going fine. Everything that could go wrong today has gone wrong. Earlier in the show, I didn't know the settings and the presets that Casey has geared up to how he wants to produce the show. Like mics turning off and switching and all that stuff. I didn't know any of that stuff, so it's like trying to control someone else's shower. No clue what's going on. Secondly, this little deck here, that's the buttons to switch cameras manually, not working. So I have to like point and click what cameras I want to switch and everything like that. So it's been a fun time over here, but we'll be back and better than ever. We will be doing box lunch sometime after the show. We're going to shut everything down and then start back up, and that'll be about 5-10 minutes after the show. But thank you guys so much for watching today. Please give us a like. There's a couple of, before I get into the ads, there's a couple of super chats from Drew Garrison. Drew Garrison has a $5 super chat. Reed is really leaning into Zach Bryan fandom. He is actively trying to look like him. Yeah, that's the whole point of this mustache. I mean, when I saw Zach Bryan's TikToks of him singing Heading South the first time that I ever saw him, my first reaction was, that guy kind of looks like me, and I've leaned into it ever since. One time I went to go see him down in Nashville, and I went to a bar. I had a mustache grown out. I wore the jean jacket like he used to wear at the time, and a guy came up to me and asked if I was Zach Bryan, which just made me lean into the bit. But thank you for the super chat. He also, with the $2 super chat, give Jeremiah a bigger role. Jeremiah, I think, is back from his little vacation. He went on a
I haven't
cruise.
seen Jeremiah since Memorial. I didn't know what you guys did with him. I didn't know if you guys shoved him in a closet. I didn't know what you guys did with him.
But yeah, let's get into these ads here as I pull them up. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data center world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work from home computing modules to improve efficiency and
P
R.
O.
D
U.
C.
T
I.
V.
I.
T.
Y.
Visit Encore.tech. The path to innovation begins not there, but here.
That's right.
Are you still drinking regular water? Ew. Did you know that alkaline water has been shown to have superior
No, don't
hydration
break, don't
benefits
break, don't break. Do it again.
versus regular water in a
Restart.
clinical
Can you restart it?
study?
Can you restart it,
Start it
please?
over. Start it over. 'Cause come on. That was the best read we've ever done.
Are you still drinking regular water?
Ew!
Did you know that alkaline water has been shown to have superior hydration benefits versus regular water in a clinical study? That's true. And there's a new premium alkaline water out. It's Pawnee, and I have to tell you, this stuff right here, it tastes great. Made in Hamilton, Ohio. Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world.
In Milford.
Please visit their website at pawneewater.com. That's PAHHNI. PAHHNI water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water at a store near you. And shout out to our ticket sponsor, Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is fantastic if you're going to go to a Reds game in the coming weeks, because they just came off a 10-game homestand, but they show you exactly where you're going to sit. They show you exactly how much money, the upfront pricing, and if you wait till game time, that's why they get the name of the app, you will typically get lower prices. It is the best app out there for buying tickets. I don't have the ad read in front of us, but thank you so much to our sponsor, Game Time. It truly is the app that I've used. I used it well before they were our sponsor here because it is the best ticketing app. It's always worth a look, and you can see all the great concerts, all the great sporting events coming up in the coming weeks. So thank you so much. Once again, we are going to have box lunch for the members after this. We got a very busy week. As I'm just trying to keep my head above water with this whole system. So, yeah, that's it. Any other parting notes before we get back to Radio Land?
The good news is you only have 3 more days of this. It's only Monday.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this. I just wish this. The only thing is I wish the Stream Deck was working. It's just not working right now. So I have to do everything point and click. So that's why we don't have the breaks. That's why we don't have the transitions and stuff like that, which after the show's done, I'm going to make sure that we have all that ready for tomorrow. So, yeah.
Once you get rolling on that, it's like Casey, it's like he's been doing it for so damn long. But it's like, you did it for a couple days. I forgot what you had to do it for.
2 days.
But no.
A handful of days.
Having to do that when I would talk to you, though, I could always tell when I'm like, oh, don't go to Jacob yet. Like his eyes glazed over right now because he's trying to figure out the transitions of that stuff.
See, Casey has all the shortcuts ironed out. He knows where everything is. He has it built out for himself. And the other people that sit in that chair don't necessarily know where all that stuff is that he uses.
And he don't care because he's in Bermuda or wherever he is.
Well, he likes to make sure he has a little job security. He only teaches nuggets at a time. He won't give you the whole intensive lesson on vMix and all that. Stuff.
Well, here's the thing that I do like about Casey is every once in a while, I'll want to do something with vMix, and he will be like, why are you trying to do that? It's like, Casey, I'm not trying to steal your job. I'm not trying to do that. He does do that from time to time. You're like, hey, can I figure out how to do this? He's like, what, why do you want to do that? I just want to be able to, when you go on a vacation, to be able to do the job. So shout out Casey. Hope you're having a great time.
So we all need to tweet him and just be like, Reed, this was the best produced show I think we've ever been a part of today.
That's right. Reed usually gets a lot of love from the chat on the show, so hopefully that's still coming in.
Yeah.
So.
All right. We'll take. We got 2 breaks left, so we'll take about 5 seconds. There are 2 segments left, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we'll take some time.
Cool.
All right, welcome back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner with you here. And, of course, we got Reed sitting in for Casey today, handling all the fun button-pushing stuff behind the scenes, so we appreciate that. Jimmy, Elliott, and Jacob off and rolling here on a Monday. Of course, we opened up the show with reaction to Chase Burns, the number 1 pitcher available in this most recent MLB draft. That was the Reds' number 2 selection yesterday. Everyone who doesn't watch college baseball or knew anything about the draft had so much to say on social media, but that's the fun part, of course. But nonetheless, the Reds wrap up the first half of the season 47-50 heading into the All-Star break. You got the Home Run Derby tonight, All-Star game tomorrow, and then again the second half of the season, which is not technically the halfway point of the season, but the post-All-Star break portion of the season begins on Friday, and we'll talk more Reds throughout the week as far as that's concerned. We'll dive into the NL Central buy or sell coming up here around the corner as well. Jimmy, you touched on this earlier. So, I'm not a big soccer guy. I can't really get into it, to be quite honest with you, but I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's a sport that I try to watch. I try to get into. Same with hockey. I just can't get into it no matter how hard I try. Doesn't mean that they're bad sports. I just can't get into them. I think we all have that particular sport out there that we can all say the same thing about. I know you're not a big college football. I mean, me and Jacob are big college football guys. Where are you guys at with college football? I know, Elliot, you're
Jimmy's in.
I'm starting to get back in. I'm starting to get back in. The college football video game all the way back, and then we're going to play a season where it seems like every team's going to have a fair shot at making it to the playoff. So, and for that reason, I'm going to be all the way back. But for the past couple of years, yeah, it's been. I know UC made it, but I still never liked that process.
So it opens it up a little bit more,
a little bit
with the 12 team as far as that goes.
We had this debate if you're going to complain about being the 13th seed, or if you're the 13th or 12th, you lose all your. I don't feel any sympathy for you.
You're going to have presumably 3 losses, probably 4 losses if you're on the outside looking in. So win more games.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There will be complaints.
Oh yeah, it'll be just as loud.
You didn't ask me about my take on college football, but I'll give it anyway.
I was lobbing it.
Reed
hates it.
I think being a college football fan of like a powerhouse, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre, all these teams, I feel like that feels like a miserable existence. Because a couple of years ago, Ohio State, your favorite team, they won the Big Ten by like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They won the Big Ten championship by 3 touchdowns. You did not have fun during that game. That was not a fun game for Ohio State fans. That doesn't sound like a fun thing. Like, I like to just root for my team to win. I just root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. But I don't.
That was great. That was phenomenal.
But yeah,
Oh my God.
College
You're a
football just
pro.
seems like a miserable existence.
No, but you're right. And they won the Rose Bowl that year, and everyone points to it as one of the most failed seasons of the last decade for Ohio State. So
That's because the Big Ten also was dumb and they didn't have the whole format set up. One thing I loved about the Big 12 was the top 2 teams would play in the damn Big Ten or the conference championship game. It would not be Ohio State playing Purdue, Ohio State playing Iowa. No one was buying that those were the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. The 2 best teams in the Big Ten played the week before. All right, and everyone out there. I don't want Ohio State, Michigan to play back-to-back weeks. If those are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, I don't give a rip if they play the next 4 weeks. You disagree, obviously.
so
but,
on the other side.
No, that's fine. But Reed's right. The Big Ten championship game, I never got excited about that because it was Purdue. The game was over before it kicked off. Iowa, well, their defense, man, they might hold Ohio State to a touchdown in the first quarter and make it interesting. Final score, 56-10. And Ohio State had a bad defensive game, giving up 10 points to Iowa's horrendous offense. I got tired of that. I think they should have restructured that a long time ago. But you disagree, and that's fine. But I'm just curious why.
Yeah, I love divisions
You
in
love
college
Purdue?
football. I think, having divisions in the conferences in college football is just part of what made college football unique. Having to win the East versus the West and not just, playing the whole schedule and the way you would protect rivalries in that sense. I loved divisions in college football, but there's no way you can keep that and go to the 12-team playoff. Those 2 things battle against each other with the only the conference champion getting the automatic bid. You're not playing the same, 4 teams get in. You have a chance to get multiple teams in. So every conference is going to do away with divisions. I think the Sun Belt is the only FBS conference left with divisions. But, yeah, I mean, it's just the way the sport's going. But I do think it's a shame. I think that was really the first step towards the NFLification of college football, is doing away with the divisions.
Well, yeah, and, I saw someone say the other day, you look at college football, if they don't play anyone, like Ohio State doesn't play Oregon until, like, October 12th.
Yeah.
But they have a bye week and a bunch of nobodies before that. And I'm like, we get excited leading up to kickoff, but then when the game kicks off, it's like these games are not exciting. Every week it's just a bludgeoning of a team. Ohio State's season doesn't technically kick off till October 12th.
50.5-point favorites in week 1.
Yes, it's like, but it's you go to the shoe and it's the All-State, Buckeye Stadium or whatever. Oh, never going back.
Raising Cane's Field.
Yes. But, no, over the weekend, I saw clips of this, too, which is wild. I know, Jimmy, you alluded to this a little bit ago. But the 2024 Copa America between Argentina and Colombia delayed for over 75 minutes on Sunday following a security breach. It happened a lot this weekend, in which fans broke through one of the main entry gates. Now, you guys saw clips of what broke out. Now, I don't know what happened here. I almost wonder, too, if the amount of urgency that is put forth hosting these types of events for a sport that we don't value here in America. I'm not saying we don't, we value. Here, look, Cincinnati. You have FC Cincinnati, obviously the Crew over in Columbus. This is a state that has embraced soccer. This country semi-embraces it, but they don't put forth the effort or give that same respect to that sport that they do. There are 3 big ones, which of course is football, basketball, and baseball. I'm not sure what happened yesterday that led to this, but you had 2, rabid fan bases that were just eager to get into this stadium. In fact, you had thousands of fans that basically just kind of broke through one entry gate. There was scary footage of parents that were being pushed into this gate. They were handing their kids over the gate to security guards because kids were crying because their heads were being smashed into the bars along the side. I would be terrified as a parent bringing a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid to a soccer match to enjoy a fun sporting event, and then it turns into that. That's chaotic. That was wild, and that's not even where it stopped. At one point, the security guards were just totally outmatched. Fans bull rushed their way in. You talked about breaking in through the ducts. They were sneaking into the stadium that way. Now, I have to ask Jimmy, I'm not a big soccer fan, but this Argentina-Colombia matchup seems like it was such a huge deal that thousands of fans had to bull rush their way in to a stadium in Los Angeles. We have the Super Bowl, we have World Series, NBA Finals, the National Championship of college football. Civilized fans, we line up. We wait our turn to be patted down and to have our ticket beeped to let us in.
Beep.
This is why everyone hates soccer. This is just horrendous stuff. Not a good look for your sport, Jimmy. Not a good look at all.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
mean,
agree.
Yeah, it's not a good look for the sport. I think a lot of that has to do with South Americans, like the way that they
Careful.
act around soccer. No, I mean it's true. It's not a representation of us hosting the event. That's the league.
Well, real quick, I want you to continue on that. I did want this for you. That's why I wanted to bring this up. But that's why I said earlier about the urgency. Like, if it's the Super Bowl, I feel like we have tons of security because we know how crazy fans get for football, right?
Yeah.
But because we don't match football's energy in this country the way we do in other countries, to say that we're not prepared for it, I mean, security looked like they had no solution
Not to
for
mention
this.
Hard Rock Stadium. I don't think the U has ever had more than like 1,500 fans at a game. So
that's
the
true.
security's never seen this kind of crowd.
Yeah, I think the passion surrounding the idea of international soccer on a global scale has a lot to do with it. These countries take pride and joy in their country when they're on the pitch, but at the same time, you also have to remember that these fans don't sit together. They're separated apart. So the Argentinian fans sit alone, and the Colombian fans sit on their half of the stadium, and so that in itself shows the atmosphere and the hatred for the other countries and the passion for their own country. And I think the biggest worry about this is the United States is hosting the World Cup in 2026, and there are going to be a lot more matches like this scale and a bigger scale, and there are going to be a lot more fans from across the world who come and play here in the United States. They come and travel to support their country, and now it kind of begs the question, is the United States fit to host the World Cup, which is on an even bigger scale than the Copa America, when they had all those troubles last night and Hard Rock Stadium, parts of the stadium were destroyed.
You saw the escalators, right?
The
I mean,
escalator,
just the glass
absolutely
shattered,
destroyed.
the belt taken off.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to worry about. And I know people say that we host the Super Bowl every single year. We host and all these big sporting events, the NBA Finals, the World Series, all that. But you have to remember that the fans who go and support, like the road fans go and support, and they buy their seats in the middle of in the middle of the home fans too. So I think it is the idea that they're separating the fans shows how maybe not dangerous, but you see that they separate these fans for a reason. You saw in the semifinal match, these fans were punching each other, that players had to go up into the stands and fight for their families. And I think it's just the atmosphere around international soccer and professional soccer as a whole, and all over the world. The supporters are much different, and I think it is a legitimate worry going into the World Cup in 2026. And I hope that the United States figures out a way to kind of control it and make it a good tournament, and we don't have this issue, because it's definitely something to worry about.
Or the fans could just not be, trying to hijack a stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem too. But no, Jimmy's right. They need to be more prepared, because they did not look like the ratio. I mean, you're not going to have a security guard for every fan that's in attendance,
Right.
but they just gave up. I mean, I think they kind of got afraid too. You saw the people where they bull rushed in. They were handing kids off just to make sure they're pulled off to the side so they're not trampled. I saw a dog. There was a dog that got loose that was running through the crowd. It was just a little foo-foo dog too. It wasn't even like a big dog. It had a leash on, so someone lost their dog. I don't know. Wild, as far as the scenes that came from that. But no, Elliot, you were going to say something.
I was just going to be like, I was going to say they definitely probably didn't realize how big the Copa America tournament was. When I hear it, as somebody who has not grown up in the international soccer world, I think of it as not like, what is this tournament? It's a secondary tournament
Yeah.
to the biggest tournament in the world. Like
I think it's a tertiary tournament.
Yeah, yeah.
Euros is a better.
It's like an in-season It's like what the NBA did. That's what it is to me, and it's very much not that. It's very much a bigger deal to everybody else. They were very clearly unprepared for this. I do think it is a different world when you talk about the international soccer fans compared to the NFL fans. NFL fans are just stupid. Like, we have the drunk idiots that go out there and try to headbutt people. They have fans that are sneaking through ducts and going in through the sewers like Andy Dufresne did in Shawshank Redemption. That's what those fans are doing, trying to get into the stadium just to watch their team play a 0-0 game. But nonetheless, I will say this. It is pretty cool to see that many people care about it. It's not cool to vandalize an entire stadium.
Yeah, this just really makes me slightly nervous for the World Cup. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not too far out here, and that's way more countries playing in it than just Copa America, and way more rabid fans. If you see how the Euros went, those fan bases over there don't mess around. So,
No.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see,
Good news-
a
good
Walmart parking lot of
Yeah.
Spain fans in Arlington, Texas, right in front of the
Yeah.
AT&T Stadium. See how they handle that.
Good news is there won't be a situation like Uruguay dealt with when their fans and families were getting punched and all that. There won't be a situation like that because the United States Soccer Club will not make it out of the group stage.
Yes, they will.
For
but
safety reasons.
For safety reasons.
safety
For
reasons.
safe- they're
Well,
thinking
they
about their
fired
own
Greg, though.
families.
We're good now.
We
true.
fired Greg. We care about our team. We care about success. And 2026 is,
Fired Greg and struck out on his
already
replacement in
looking better.
under an hour.
Well, it's not.
Old Jurgs Klopp just said no right away.
It's not officially over. I mean, they could offer him some more money, and maybe he'll change his mind.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to coach Team USA? Such a storied history.
Such
of
a storied
winning.
program.
I feel like we're watching the Lakers coaching search all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar as far as that's concerned.
All the
Greg
funds
with
for the
3 Gs, by
United
way.
States men's team should go straight to the women's team. Women's team actually wins games.
Plus the pay-for-play debate. I always look forward to that every time that tournament comes around. So
We doing that?
Yeah, every time.
Unfortunately,
It's
can't
a
do it now.
time for-
Unfortunately, can't do it now because it's time for a break.
Oh, darn! I wanted to get
darn.
into
I wanted to get into
equality
the
and
ins
pay.
Yeah,
of the United States Soccer Federation's pay gap.
I did not want to.
All right, break time.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
I had a great Angel Reese take on that too.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
Well, we're out of time, so
Oh.
that's fine. All right, a little buy or sell NL Central when we come back. All right, welcome back. Justin Kinner hanging out with you here on a Monday. And, of course, we got Jimmy Elliott and Jacob and Mr. Reed filling in for Casey today. We appreciate everyone tuning in, hanging out with us. I thought you were tweeting a little bit ago, but you're in the chat arguing college football right now.
I am in the
with
chat
Drew.
arguing college football.
What are they arguing about college football in the
Just
chat?
the standard Drew Garrison won 3 games in his life and doesn't know how to act. So.
And
It's all
then-
right.
Dude, it's tough to know that your national championship that came through cheating. It's tough. That was a stray at Drew. I'm sorry,
Personally,
Drew.
if I was 4-16 in the last 20 years, I wouldn't talk this much. But personally,
fair.
And then Everett and Chase are having a pointless argument about Notre Dame football being on the same tier when with programs like Bama and Michigan and Georgia and all of a sudden when someone starts bringing out actual facts of historical information. Oh, no, I was just talking last year. Like, obviously, last year, yeah, sure.
also slight correction. I was not 4-16, 4-15 because Michigan ran away in 2020.
That's true.
Forgot about that.
I mean, I would probably count that one as a loss, though.
I mean,
Michigan.
I don't want to do ifs, ands, or buts, but that 2020 Ohio State team would have dominated that Michigan team.
I didn't know faking COVID was an option.
Yeah.
To get out of adding L's to
it's crazy.
adding tallies to an L column. But Everett says what facts?
The fact that Notre Dame has 11 national championships and the most draft picks ever, and he said that they're not an elite program.
Most draft
Picks ever if you go back to like World War I.
Yeah, it's still
Because
the most
Ohio
ever.
State has the most draft picks ever.
Most first-round draft picks ever.
Oh.
Most draft picks ever, Notre Dame.
So you have the most average players drafted. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Whatever.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I mean, tomato. It is what it is at this point.
Did we read Drew's super chats yet?
Yes,
Okay,
but
we
there's
did.
another one.
There's another one.
There's another one.
So I'll read this one.
Okay.
If it is true Ohio State had over a month to change their signals, indictment on Ryan Day. Jacob, Ohio State, quote, ran away from Illinois that year too.
Yeah, Ohio State was real scared of Illinois. Illinois, noted powerhouse. Ohio State produced positive tests for that game too. Michigan never did for the Ohio State game. So,
right.
we could do this all day.
If Michigan does play that season and Ohio State bludgeons them, which would have happened, Harbaugh would have been fired.
Yup.
And then they never would have been able to carry on the execution of their cheating scandal that led to multiple coaching suspensions. You have another school in Central Michigan being investigated for how some rando is standing on the sidelines that they have no clue how it got there, that was stealing signs from Michigan State, which is just wild. And by the way, I think it's very pathetic of Michigan to have to steal signs from a horrible program in Michigan State. So I'm just saying, it is what it is. But, is what it is.
Just wish they would have got it right and stole TCU's signs. Maybe you could have won another one. What a shame. You sent them to Tennessee and South Carolina instead. Oh, man. What a bummer.
All right, buy or sell, NL Central edition as we wrap up the radio program here today. Again, off the bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. A little buy or sell action as we are officially at not the halfway point mathematically, technically, but at the All-Star break and the post-All-Star portion of the season getting underway on Friday. So the Reds, they can't fulfill the sweep yesterday over the Marlins to take momentum into the All-Star break, of course, but depending on what day you stop keeping track of wins and losses, 5-2 finish to the season. Nonetheless, they get the number one pitcher in the draft yesterday. Yes, there are ways to put a positive spin on the final couple series heading into the break. I think we all, as we talked about earlier, Elliot, you touched on it, we saw that 10-game stretch as an opportunity to really make some noise, to really put all of baseball on notice that, okay, we know that good teams beat bad teams, and if the Reds could have taken care of business against the Tigers to complement what they were able to do against the Rockies and the Marlins, maybe feel a little bit different heading into the break. But obviously injuries still exist coming out of the All-Star break. I know Reece Hinds has emerged as a star. There's all this, that, and the other. But nonetheless, very intriguing second half of the season. Really July. The whole season comes down to July. Before we get into the buy-sell, saw someone else throw in the chat a little bit ago our thoughts on the Reds and everything kind of wrapping up the first half of the season. Just closing thoughts on the Reds real quick before we get into buy-sell.
If you would have told me the Cincinnati Reds would be in last place in the division, 3 games under 500, 4 games out of a wild card spot, I would not have been happy. So I commend them on their season battling adversity here, because if you also would have told me that half the roster got injured at various points during this season, and we lose CES for the year, you lose Matt McClain for the year, Noelvi Marte is gone for half the year, and then when he comes back, he's not any good. I would be pretty disappointed. There are some positives. Maybe for anybody who thought Ellie De La Cruz would regress, dead wrong. For anybody who thought Hunter Green was a closer, dead wrong. Anybody who thought Nick Lodolo wasn't going to be as good, dead wrong. So there are some positives to take away from this season. Jameer Candelario's having a career year, and me including. That includes me, too, at the beginning of the year when I was concerned that Jameer was going to be another free agent bat that the Reds would waste $15 million on. He showed that he's more than worth it. So there are a lot of positives to take away from the season, but I feel like the negatives, unfortunately, have outweighed that.
I agree for the most part with Elliot when you look at preseason looking at this season, but if you would have told me in like mid to late May when this team was hitting a $190, 210 as a team that they were going to be 47-50 and still battling for the wild card at the All-Star break, I would have been thrilled. I mean, we were buying or selling, this team selling off like key legitimate pieces, and now we have the debate seems like every week whether we're going to buy. So the fact that the Reds have scratched and clawed and hung around and give me a relatively exciting second half to look forward to and at least want to watch the next month or so of games while we're still fighting. That's about as much as I can ask for with the amount of injuries we've had and the way the season was looking early. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting real quick, you brought up everyone thought Ellie was going to regress this year just because, and I was one of them, not because I don't think he's good. It's just, I think the expectations were so high for him coming into the season. I thought, man, I think it's going to be really tough for him mentally to come out and physically match the mental expectations coming in. But he's a superstar, and he has lived up to those expectations. I'd like to see the power numbers bump up a bit. I know he's coming off of that home run or whatever, but
he leads the team in home runs.
I'm pleasantly, well, for a team that doesn't hit home runs.
Most home runs of any team in the league in this month.
I know this month, but I mean overall.
I feel like his power numbers are pretty good.
17 home runs at the midway break.
Unbelievable power numbers. Yeah, he's far above any expectations for power numbers.
Okay. With four, I mean, if you would have told me Ellie De La Cruz would have had 17 home runs, 46 stolen bases, I would have laughed.
How many extra base hits?
19 doubles, 6 triples as well.
Yeah,
he leads the team in triples by
it doesn't get much better.
Good 4. Doesn't lead the team in doubles. That title belongs to Spencer Steer. Shout out to Spencer Steer.
Who's had an unbelievable year. I mean, he's, top 10 in RBIs, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy.
60 RBIs for Spencer Steer. Looking at, I mean, really, the one Tyler Stevenson has improved this season. I know he's not been great offensively, but I think he's certainly been better than he was last year. Jonathan India has been on a tear that the likes of which he has not seen in his career. Outside of that, for starters, I think the really only bad one I'd say is Will Benson. Will Benson just hasn't found any sort of consistency, offensive power that he had last year. Jake Fraley, same sort of deal. Unfortunately, both of them not great defenders, and offensively they've given us nothing. So those are the two big blemishes that are costing the Reds here.
All right, little NL Central, buy or sell. I'll throw it out to you guys on this one. Buy or sell as we sit here at the All-Star break. The St. Louis Cardinals are the biggest threat to the Brewers post-All-Star break. Buy or sell? Jacob, start with you.
Oh, I'll buy this one big time, and I would maybe even flip it and say I think the Brewers are the biggest threat to the Cardinals at this point. With the way these two teams are playing, I think my faith is in the Cardinals winning this division. I think the Cardinals are going to win this division. I think the Brewers are going to be right on their heels. But, yeah, no, I think these two teams are distantly separated among everyone else.
I agree 100%. I think the Cardinals are going to win the division as well. Not just because I have money on it, but I do think offensively they are better than the Brewers.
Yeah.
I trust their offense more than I trust the Brewers' offense. I know Reece Hoskins is having a great year. I know Yelich is having a great year. I think Adames is having still an above-average year. But at the end of the day, I think I trust the Cardinals more because I think Reed made the point with Tom. They are the Steelers of Major League Baseball. They just win and win and win, and there's no way you can stop them. You just know they're going to be competitive and successful, and that's what they're going to be towards the end of this season. I remember I think it was 2021 when I think the Cardinals won. It was like what 20 out of their last 30 or 25 out of their last 30 to get in.
Yeah.
It was just something outrageous. I think something similar will happen this season, especially when you get to play the Cubs, Reds, and Pirates.
Yep, I'm gonna buy this as well. I think I don't quite know who I think is gonna win. I know you guys think that the Cardinals could definitely win this division. I think the Cardinals will get a wild card spot this year, but I do think they have been very good. I think they've gotten a lot of their kind of veteran bats back, and like Goldschmidt and Arenado are having good seasons. I think Contreras is back now, I believe.
Yep, Contreras is having a great year too.
Contreras is back and having a great year. Mason Wynn's been great. I like what I've seen from him a lot. I think he's a great shortstop, and I think he had a 300 average for at least a little bit. And yeah, I think it's a winning organization, and I think they're gonna be on the Brewers' heels for the rest of the second half.
I'm gonna go different than you guys. I'm selling this one all the way. I don't believe in the St. Louis Cardinals at all. At all. And it's crazy because you should believe in them. They've got two probably going to be Hall of Famers on the corners of their infield, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They've got young talent in Mason Wynn. They've got one of the most elite catchers in the league in Wilson Contreras. And they've got Sonny Gray and some veteran pieces, and they've got a bona fide closer that looks, smells, barks like a playoff team. But this team, I just am not buying. Elliott said that he trusts the Cardinals' offense more than the Brewers. The Brewers have scored the third most runs in the National League. The Cardinals have scored the second least amount of runs in the National League. The reason that they are winning games is because, I don't know, because they are the Steelers. They just somehow win games. All that being said, I think that they're going to fall off. I think what happened last year isn't a fluke. I think that this team, though it does have some nice pieces, I think it is being propped up on some mystic voodoo thing that goes on over there in St. Louis, and I think they're going to crumble down. When you have 5 or 4 35-year-old arms, and only one of them is actually pretty good in Sonny Gray, I don't buy this team at all. In fact, I think that the biggest threat to the Brewers, because that's what this buy or sell is, the biggest threat to the Brewers is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are 500. They've got 3 bona fide aces, although Jared Jones is hurt right now. And I said this on Tom's show. I'll say it again. I think that every team that is going to make the postseason, none of them want to play the Pittsburgh Pirates in a wild card round. Why would you? 3-game series, you got to play Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Jared Jones. A team that plays pretty decent defense, too. Like, if Brian Hayes and O'Neal Cruz can hit just a little better, because Brian Reynolds is a stud, if they can have one of their catchers hit just a little bit better, that team is a legitimate playoff team. And that's a team that if they get into the playoffs, can make a run.
I will say, I'm not going to change my opinion, but looking at these numbers, they're 13th, and the Cardinals are. They're 13th in batting average, which is by far their best stat. They're 18th on on-base percentage, 23rd in runs scored, 25th in home runs hit, 20th in slugging percentage. Pitching-wise, 16th in ERA. They're 23rd in batting average against and 16th in walks plus hits per innings pitched. They're just not very good.
Or their stats are that bad and they're only 4.5 back in second, and the stats are going to get better.
Yeah, maybe. But I didn't know they were that mediocre at everything.
There's two teams in the National League that haven't scored 400 runs. It's the Miami Marlins, who have 336 runs, and it's the St. Louis Cardinals. Everyone else has scored 400 runs.
That's hilarious.
Well, the other thing too. Keep going, Jimmy.
It's just kind of hard for me to sell on an organization that continues to produce winning baseball year in and year out. So I think that's
which is really both of these.
And they could, could still keep on with winning baseball, Jimmy. They could still finish above 500 and still miss the playoffs, and not. I mean, they could finish above 500, play winning baseball, and still not win this division. And I think what makes this buy or sell so intriguing is not so much about how the Cardinals are playing, who are sitting behind the Brewers. It's how poorly the Brewers are playing heading in to this break. I mean, they were the most dominant team to start. I mean, they were kind of running away with it. The Reds right now, they're only 8 only. I didn't mean it like that. 8 games back, but they were double digits back for a while. Obviously, the Cubs 8.5 back, but the Pirates, that team right there in the middle, that's who I had down, that team just to keep an eye on, because they're just kind of hanging out in the middle. They're hovering around 6.5 back. They just have those feel-good vibes right now where their rebuild's starting to come together. You talked about the pieces they have in the rotation, this, that, and the other. So the Pirates I'd keep an eye on. But also with the Cardinals being right behind the Brewers, they have a lot of pieces that for a team that you sit there and look at them, we talk about the Reds being sellers, how the Cardinals aren't being talked about more as sellers heading into this deadline with some aging players on top of that. I'm surprised we haven't heard more chatter, and I know that chatter is going to pick up as the trade deadline approaches, but the Cardinals, depending on what they do at the deadline, could totally change my outlook on this as far as that's concerned.
It'd be more of a what do you sell scenario with the Cardinals. I mean, no one's going to buy Goldschmidt's contract. No one's going to buy Arenado's contract.
Sonny Gray's the interesting one to keep.
I guess some of those pitchers, but the starting pitchers haven't been really good outside of Sonny Gray.
They're not. Let me nip this in the bud. They're not going to sell. They're 4 games over 500.
Yeah.
They're an old team, so they're gonna buy if they have to.
If they didn't tear it down last year, they're not.
Yeah, they're gonna add on to the team. They're not gonna sell. And also that the fans expect them to continuously buy. The Cardinals. We talk about how in this city that we get tired of the rebuild and stuff like that. The Cardinals won't accept it.
They don't.
Cardinals fans will not accept the rebuild. So yeah, they're not going to sell.
I also think that I failed to mention at least earlier about Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, and Nolan Gorman have had incredible years. Nolan Gorman has 17 homers, Alec Burleson hitting .288, and Brendan Donovan with a .345 on base percentage. So those are guys along with Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, who are potential Hall of Famers on the corners of their infield, are really going to propel this team forward.
All right, well, we didn't even – I mean, that's good. It's July. It only took one buy or sell to take up that segment. I'm happy with that. We could push the rest of these back to tomorrow. That's good stuff. I'm very happy with that. I'm content with that if you guys are.
I'm pleased. Do you like the fly that keeps buzzing around our studio?
It's my least favorite fan in the world. Is that
it knows what it's doing. It's like not just hovering around. It's going to our faces. And
that's right. Laying it on my computer for almost the entire Elliott headline segment, and I was trying not to knock it off.
Well, he said it went in his mouth, he said.
Yeah.
It almost went in.
There you go. Hey, that Steelers comparison, though, is spot on, because the Steelers every year, you look at them, you're like, I don't know how the hell they did do that. I don't know how they did finish where they did. I don't know how they're winning these games because they're atrocious to watch. They're not. I mean, we know the Steelers, their identity is their defense, and that's where the majority of their dollars and their weapons are. But go look at the stats. They're not an elite defensive team. Like, it's not like their defense pops off the page. They just have got impact guys like Watt and others who make big plays at the right times. Offensively, they're not explosive. Their pass game's been horrible. Their run game's been average, and their offensive line's been poor. But yet, when it's all said and done, there's the Steelers, keeping Mike Tomlin's winning streak, or above 500 winning streak alive, and flirting with the postseason. You're right; they are the Steelers of Major League Baseball, no doubt about it. All right, that wraps it up for us here on the radio side of things. We appreciate you tuning in. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Okay. We are off and rolling. Actually, now we're not off and rolling. We're just
That's
rolling
right.
it out. We're
I
just wanting
received
to
a
get out.
text. I received a text from Casey.
Yeah, I have a. We'll end the show with
We have a check-in.
I don't want to spoil it, but Casey's not wearing a shirt.
Oh!
Oh,
I know Mark Fetter's excited.
That got really quiet after. They got really quiet after and sounded really weird on your part. I like that. I like the awkward silences. But with all the weird tweets you've been putting out, dude.
I think just one now.
You deleted
the other
some,
two,
didn't you?
the other two have been scrubbed, and I don't think anyone else has gotten the new password. So I think we're good to go.
Do we know who it is yet?
yeah, it wasn't Reed.
You've not figured it out.
You owe me $100.
I didn't
So
take the
was
bet.
it? It's not Casey. There is a Casey.
No, it absolutely is.
It's between Casey
and Trace,
and I think two
Like,
guys
yeah,
out there.
Yeah.
Well, because the whole kangaroo thing was being talked about by Luke and Tom the other day when they were in Australia, saying that the kangaroos that they were like squirrels over.
That's right.
That's what I was envisioning this going. But
I was in the room for that.
Yeah.
I did.
I was like, but why would Tom have your maybe
If
it's a Tom bit.
If it's Tom, I rescind everything I said. It's the funniest bit of all time.
By the way, because
If Tom's on my Twitter right now.
by the way,
sending
and you know how
tweets.
Tom is, bit.
That's right.
You
I
know,
mean, yeah.
it's
king.
exhausting, dude. So many bits. It's like we just want to talk sports, and he's just bit.
right.
Bit.
That's right.
Classic Tom.
That's true.
That is what
That's
it
the
is.
flow of this show, man.
By the way, Jacob, at 4:00 when college football comes around,
I'll hopefully be at home.
have you decided? Have you decided your team?
So I have a top 7 commitment graphic coming out sometime later today.
Of course he
You
does.
got the hats for the table?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have my face on a guy and then the 7 hats on the table. So my top 7 right now, Tulane is number 1. I think Tulane has probably the best uniforms in the game with the teal and the light blue. I like their uniforms. USF, number 2, Alex Golish's playbook, Tennessee's offensive coordinator. They have a freshman quarterback, 5 stars, very exciting. I think that'd be a fun rebuild to start. Then Kent State, because I always start in the MAC. Nick Saban started there. Feel like following his footsteps.
Sure, why not?
Texas Tech and SMU, both new uniforms, both Power 5 programs. The only 2 Power 5 schools in my top 7. And then Boise State, blue turf, fastest freshman running back in the game, rounding out my top 7. Haven't quite decided where I'm gonna start my coaching career, but it's gonna be one of those 7 schools.
So this is for Dynasty?
Dynasty.
And then you would be the coach?
I'd be the offensive coordinator at my first stop.
Okay,
I have a top 5 for Road to Glory as well.
What about the Bearcats?
Of course
Have
you
you
do.
thought
They're in my top 5 for second transfer destinations at Road to Glory.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to redshirt my first year, transfer to a small school, play
Okay.
2 years, transfer to another school, get drafted.
I haven't
I spent a lot of time on this weekend.
I haven't put much thought into it yet, partially because I won't be playing it today. But I'm thinking I'm going to take Central Michigan. Is going to be my first stop.
That's a good one.
And then
Ooh, they have Connor Stallions, dude.
They do.
Fire Up Chips.
Yeah.
They have Connor Stallions?
Well, he was
He
on their
helped,
sideline.
he helped them.
They did for
Well,
one game.
Oh,
They
I
helped
see.
him get signs. Yeah, something like that. He was there at Spartan Stadium on the sideline, though. Yeah, so I'm going to do probably Central Michigan, maybe go to Cincinnati after that, and then ultimately get the Notre Dame job and win 30 national championships in a row.
I mean, someone's got to give you a breather from Big Sat, so someone's got to come take over the Bearcat program.
Big Sat. Poor Big Sat.
You might have to get the game to just revive your program.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking
Speaking of Big Sat,
I would bring in somebody else. I'd fire Big Sat and then I'd get somebody else
Good
immediately.
news,
did you
coaches
see
aren't in the game.
Dion's comments about
Yes.
the city of Cincinnati?
What did he say? He said he wanted to be here?
He said he loved his time here, and he's always got love for the city of Cincinnati on a deep level. Like, just was oozing over the city. Maybe he did want the job, and Cunningham said no. Maybe that is what happened.
I can confirm he did want that job. I don't drop that often, but I know.
You can
I know
confirm that?
someone that knows him that he has said that verbatim.
He
So
turned
there's
down. He
that.
turned down.
What are we
Cincinnati.
doing?
It's the best bit. in
He did
sports.
not
what are
turn
we-
down
what are we-
Cincinnati because Cincinnati never even.
are we doing?
It's the
reached
best
out.
bit in sports that Deion Sanders wanted to coach here.
What are we doing?
It's the best bit in sports.
Oh, because Colorado. I mean, nice
It's
boulders and all.
exponentially better in every facet than Cincinnati.
I'm just saying. I'm not, is what Cincinnati's great.
You'd rather live in Cincinnati than Boulder, Colorado?
You know what I'd rather see? Casey with the shirt off. Do you have the tweet? You have the tweet? Are we sharing the tweet? Are we sharing the tweet?
I don't think it's
with
a
the
tweet.
video?
I don't think it's a tweet. I think it's a video.
Oh, it's a video?
It's a video.
Yeah, it's a video. I assume if it's coming, I have not.
We have not
I have
screened
not
this.
screened this at all. So, Casey, if you get me fired, so be it. But
I'm excited for
I'm
this.
assuming if it's coming from Casey here, I'll let you guys even. I'll let you guys see.
I'm just saying here.
Shirtless case. So I assume if it's coming from Casey, it's okay. But here you go.
All right, update here in Clearwater Beaches. Last night was a good night. We had quite a few lovely frozen mixed drinks here. We're doing the Tiki Bar Challenge that's here on the beach, and we're making good progress on that. A lovely ocean behind us. Fantastic. And, it's kind of weird. Jacob is a little strange today. He's been tweeting a lot of weird things. He's on the show. It's kind of weird. I don't know what that's about, but I miss you too, brother. Miss you too. Miss you guys in the chat. Hope you all have a great week. More updates to come.
So thanks for the update, Case.
We love it.
Lovely. That was lovely. And I think he insinuated.
He confirmed the suspicions.
Yeah, that it was him.
Take a vacation, dude. You don't got to be tweeting from my account when you're at the beach.
Wait,
You think he's actively doing it?
Did he schedule them out?
Oh, he sat there on Friday the entire show.
Casey did?
Oh, yeah.
No way.
Why did you tell him?
He scheduled them out?
Oh, like 30 of them.
There are so many.
Like 30 of them.
No way.
Yeah.
What, for all week or what?
Oh, yeah. The entire week.
I'm not going to go cancel the schedules. So we'll let him roll out, and I'll deal with them as they come.
Some of them are pretty fun.
Maybe I'll go look at the schedules, and then I'll make a decision.
No, there's nothing like that.
Also, I want to give a quick shout out to in the chat. We have Ed. Ed's in the chat right now. Ed took, I think it was sometime last year during the basketball season. Ed got on me for a bad Bearcats basketball take I had. Little does Ed know, I'm a Bearcats basketball fan. I think he thought I was a Xavier fan. And he was like, what does this guy know? And now Ed and I are best friends. So shout out to Ed in the chat. First day in the chat.
What up, Ed?
Shout out, Ed.
Shout out to Ed.
And Boo Musketeers.
Also, Boo the Musketeers.
Ooh, you an anti-Muskie guy?
No, but Ed, this is pro Ed.
Ed's a Bearcats guy.
Well, does Ed know that Xavier is about to have their best team that Sean Miller's ever had?
I'll tell you what. When Xavier loses this season, when they lose it all together, several injuries will happen, and they will have a losing record in the Big East. Sean Miller will leave, and that will be the end of the program. Sean Miller will leave Xavier, and that'll be the end.
That is what Xavier is known for, not replacing coaching with good coaching. That is what they're known for.
Return of the Mac.
These tweets are really funny. That he's scheduled for the rest of the day. I'm reading the schedules for the rest of the day.
I can't believe Jimbo.
Yeah, I can't believe Jimmy ruined that for everybody.
Yeah, because
it's okay.
He was talking about how he changed his password and there were going to be no more tweets and all this stuff.
I mean, there was one for 12:30. We would have found out real soon. Oh well.
Okay.
They're all gone now.
Casey, also, did you notice the Casey idiom? We like poking fun at Casey because he says things weird. Did you hear what the first thing he said was?
Oh no!
I'm here at the Clearwater Beaches. He said he's Clearwater Beach. He's like, we're at the Clearwater Beaches, and it's like, what are you talking, Casey?
Oh, Casey.
The entire time when he was talking about his vacation, he refused to call the area St. Petersburg. He would just call it Petersburg, and he would just be like, "Yeah, I'm going to Petersburg," and I'm like, you got some guy named Pete that owns a town? Like, what are you talking about, Petersburg?
It's going to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, shout out, Casey. Love you. Everything broke today.
All right.
Everything broke today.
That wraps it up for us, correct? We good?
Yep. That's right.
We
good?
We're
good. That's
we
right.
got through the Monday show. We got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday questionable. Definitely no Friday.
Definitely no Friday this week.
2.5 shows to go for the worst week in sports.
Are we boxing lunches today?
We are. At some point today. We got to do some other stuff. We will be there.
Yeah, it'll be like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, give us some time.
All right, well, good. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.